I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. What I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. What's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like live right here on Black Power Media. I'm Jared Ball. Now you can see me. Good to be seen. Good to see everybody. Those who are coming in live, good morning and welcome. Happy new Gregorian calendar new year to everybody. Appreciate you coming through. To those who will see this and hear this later on all your favorite podcast outlets, shout out to you as well. And welcome. Please do, of course, hit all the buttons. As Math Hoffa says on his, wipe your feet when you come in. Click join, like, subscribe, hit the bell. Make sure you don't miss anything when we go live or have something posted like what was just posted the other day, which I want to talk a little bit about. And I hope you all do get a chance to watch it, a classic discussion on what will we be named with the late Kwame Ture. Charlene Hunter Galt was hosting. She did. Anyway, the late Leon Winter from the Wall Street Journal was there. Anyway, but it's fitting that was just posted to the channel, and it is something I want to I'll make reference to here shortly. And then I do want to get, of course, into the part two. I want to really, finish getting, what I was hoping to get to the other day regarding the Black Wall Street wallet and Hill Harper's Bitcoin push, and what all of that means and how it connects. But I do have to go back over a couple of other things because there's been some interesting responses to, which I would have imagined to the argument I laid out on Friday, asking and suggesting that there's something that it's more important to be focused on socialism as a goal than what we are encouraged to focus on via holidays like Kwanzaa. And sort of more broadly speaking, sort of vague and vague, amorphous claims of a sort of cultural return. Got some interesting responses to that, but I'll come to that also in a second as well. But anyway, greetings to all of you. Appreciate you all coming through. So let's go ahead and get going because there is a lot to do. Oh, by the way, the Remix morning show is coming back full strength starting tomorrow morning. So please do come back and get that full boom bap breakfast with the whole crew. And speaking of people, I do want to see, we are going to get to the story tomorrow about Harvard's retraction of a study focused on the backwards hashtag. They were tagging me on Twitter asking me what you got to say now, what you got to say now. Anyway, salute to you as well, brother Anthony. Appreciate you coming through. Good morning, Pookie Wood. Anyway, okay, so let's let me so there was one piece of what I was trying to do on Friday that I could have made more clear, because there's a response that I got from a couple of people, and I'm not and surprisingly similar arguments, so I'm not sure if they were actually in communication with each other or not. But one of the arguments was that it was inappropriate for me to compare Kwanzaa to socialism because one is a holiday and one is a political theory or philosophy. And I should have thought of, or if I was going to do such a thing, it would have been more appropriate to bring in Kawaida, which is the broader philosophy that Karenga has laid down. That is the overarching philosophy. And my argument, in summary, in response, was no, that's not the point. But specifically, so for instance, one thing, so I, quoting from the website, the official Kwanzaa website, Kawaida theory is described, or philosophy is described as the philosophy of which we speak is Kawaida, which is an ongoing synthesis of and it's been a while. I admit I haven't dealt with Karenga's work directly in many years, so this was a nice, but Kawaida, which is an ongoing synthesis of the best of African thought and practices in constant exchange with the world. One of its central tenets is that culture is the fundamental source of people's identity, purpose, and direction. Thus, Kawaida is, in fact, a continuous dialogue with African culture, asking questions and seeking answers to central and enduring concerns of the African and human community. And in fact, I'll bring up the page where I got this from in just a second. This involves an ongoing search for models of excellence and paradigms of possibilities in every area of human life, but especially in the 7 core areas of culture, history, spirituality, and ethics, social organization, political organization, economic organization, creative production, and ethos. It also involves creating a language and a logic of liberation, one of opposition and affirmation, and a corresponding liberational practice to create a just and good society, impose an effective paradigm of mutually beneficial human relations and human possibility. End quote. So as I sent this to a friend of mine who was questioning my argument, I actually said that nothing in what I just read is better than even the simple phrase of workers of the world unite. And my point was and is that as much as I appreciate and encourage incorporating, studying, referring back to traditional African cultural values, I think, as I showed in part 1, which is already linked in this show notes to this video, the point I'm getting at, and I think I've shown, I think I did a pretty good job in a short sort of discussion, showed where Walter Rodney showed the flaws in that approach, and in an argument why we need to be centering and focused on, for this world, for this life, a scientific socialist arrangement. It's not to valorize and then what I also thought was the beauty of Rodney's argument. One of my favorite parts from that argument actually is where he shows that many who would study Marx have been incorrect in missing the point that Marx did not, as Rodney reminds us, did not tell us that we have to go in the traditional feudalism, mercantilism, capitalism. Then we have the technological and resource capability to move into socialism and communism. He said, particularly for African societies that did not have the benefit, so to speak, of traditional capital and capitalist formation as colonized and enslaved communities, with the Soviet Union having gone through its involved commune traditional practices brought into the so-called modern era with scientific socialist principles, could have been what demonstrated and provided the capability for the production of all that is necessary for human thriving, meaning that colonized people, Africans and others, would not have had to go through that so-called stage to get to a socialism. And then he explained, as Rodney, that is, that traditional communalism values that I and many others, I think, have incorrectly often just connected and compared to a modern day scientific or socialist approach, is incorrect. And and I went through and tried to show how Rodney was saying those two aren't comparable, because one was for a different time and place and uh, uh, um, societal arrangement, economic arrangement. Scientific socialism is the planned redistribution, production, redistribution of goods and services to people now. So he was saying we can't just go back to traditional communalism, because communalism wasn't designed to produce all that is necessary to get us to where we are now. So that was, anyway, I don't think I'm doing that part as good a job as maybe I did Friday, and certainly as Rodney did, which is why all of that work is linked. But the point I'm getting at is that for Friday and today was that whether it's the broader Kawaida philosophy, whether it's Kwanzaa as a celebration or a holiday, I think both are insufficient in providing the specifics that really, what was my other favorite point from Rodney that I was trying to borrow from, is that without the clear political organizational focus on scientific socialism, we can get misled into, as Rodney was saying, of Ujamaa, and I'm going to come back to that slightly in just a second. In Nyereri's Ujamaa, he was saying was not sufficient for the so-called contemporary or modern moment, in that it didn't address all of the needs of bringing resources or well, specifically, he was saying it doesn't assure that the classlessness that we want would be eradicated in a communal arrangement where bias and preference and productive power, and therefore political power, would rest within certain segments in rural areas and not be managed and distributed to everybody else not in those areas, certainly as is the case today, where most of us are not in those areas. So, in other words, we can't just have a broad, vague claim to Ujamaa or communal values or traditional African cultural values without the specifics of a politically organized scientific socialism and redistributionist politics. Uh, um, because we can get bought off into reactionary. It's too easy to get, have the dressing there, the wrapping, disguise or mask a reactionary, in this case, capitalist, black capitalist politics. So, anyway, please see part 1 for that. I think that part, but I felt I had to try to do a quick recap there. And anyway, but this is what I did want to show that I forgot to show from Friday. So this is from, again, the official Kwanzaa website, and I get it. I know Kwanzaa is a holiday, but what I was also trying to argue in defense of my argument to those who, by the way, some of you even acknowledged not actually watching the video and only reading the headline and then responding and even calling me out in public, with some hostility too, some less than appropriate respect, without even watching the argument. That's not good work. Some of you, even professors out there, that's just methodologically poor. But anyway, but my point here is just as an example, and the connection I had meant to make that I forgot to make, is that Nyerere is mentioned here under Ujamaa, shared work, wealth, and good in the world, and quoted here as saying there are more important things in life than amassing riches, and if the pursuit of wealth clashes with things like human dignity and social equality, the latter must be given priority, of course. So my point here is that Ujamaa and the Ujamaa of Nyerere and the reference of Nyerere does, in attempt to consciously or unconsciously, indirectly, tacitly maybe, politicize these concepts. So in other words, people are using Kwanzaa as something more than just a holiday, but they are using it. It is often used as a cover for one or another political project. So to simply dismiss it and say that I'm incorrect in comparing it to a political philosophy and should have, attached my critique to the broader Kawaida philosophy is I think a mistake. And here's one reason. Another example. So my point is the Kwanzaa website, the official Kwanzaa website, is in fact doing that. It is tacitly saying that Nyereri's approach to Ujamaa is correct. If we go and then read what his argument was and then see, as I was trying to show, what Rodney's critique of it was, or I think his critique of it was, then you can see sort of the point I'm getting at here. It does perform the function of being, actually, all holidays. I should have even made this argument. All holidays are political. There is no, and that was the whole point in raising the critique on Friday of saying, as Kwanzaa and Karenga have said of Kwanzaa, it's not meant to challenge the coloniality of Christianity and Christmas. So if we're recognizing the coloniality, the imperialism in Christmas and Christianity, and we're not challenging it with our own holidays, then we're again tacitly accepting the politics of that project. But here's another. Here's my favorite group, One United Bank. I got this in my email. One United Bank. Yes, we celebrate Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a Pan-African holiday which celebrates family, community, and culture created by Dr. Maulana Karenga in 1966. So here, Kwanzaa, the holiday, as it's been said, and not to be critiqued as a political project, is being used by One United Bank to cover its Black capitalist project. So for Umoja, I am we, I am because we are. They didn't have a specific, I thought, okay, hold on, here's a better one then. Or self-determination. At One United Bank, the largest Black-owned bank in America, we celebrate our ability to research and tell our own stories and to choose to define ourselves by our assets rather than our challenges. So again, okay, here we go. Here's it. Ujamaa teaches us to support one another and to build businesses that benefit the whole community and helps us thrive. Opportunities include We Buy Black, Black Wall Street app, which we'll be talking about, which identifies Black-owned businesses nationwide. Oh, by the way, there's some branding competition. By the way, the Black Wall Street app is not the Black Wall Street wallet app. So Black Wall Street helps you identify Black businesses, and in fact on one Black Wall Street website, it's just a one Black lawyer. But then there's the Black Wall Street app. But the point is, We Buy Black, Black Wall Street, Bank Black are all identified as collective economics. That has been my broader argument with my buying power work, with my arguments about crypto and everything else, is that people keep using symbolic blackness, radical blackness, to promote reactionary conservative politics. So to say that I shouldn't be critical of a holiday because it's not a political ideology, and I should criticize the broader ideology or philosophy of Kawaida, my point is they're both doing the same thing. They allow for the same thing to occur. Now, I know that at the end, beneath a lot of the backs and forth is the reality that this is the old argument over, again, so-called cultural nationalism or revolutionary and revolutionary nationalism, or it's that old argument. And people who don't like Huey or prefer Karenga over Huey are telling me that, are being critical of the argument I'm making, and people who are preferring Huey over Karenga are supporting the argument that I'm making. What I was trying to do, and then I heard from the author herself, and I'm hoping to get the updated version of this piece that she wanted to send me, and that I think got cut out in the part of my show Friday. Was my discussion of this piece here from Loretta Laurie Fisher. It's like Happy Kwanzaa. It's not just a celebration, but a solution. And what I was trying to do, working through her piece here, was to make the point that, as she reminds us again, that Kwanzaa is not meant to challenge Christianity, but that is, I think what she's trying to do here is to say, how can we make our use of Kwanzaa be more substantive and involved in the struggles of the day, particularly around workers and the idea of socialism. So she says here, the main reasons for Kwanzaa remaining the underdog would be the deliberate promotion of the colonial European Christmas traditions of the ruling classes in America and around the world. This promotion is part and parcel of capitalism, which is captained by white supremacy and fueled by racism. Capitalism would never support unity, self-determination, or cooperative economics. Also remember that Kwanzaa's creation was firmly rooted in the Black Power movement born out of America's civil rights struggle. The socialist principles of Karl Marx and the principles of Kwanzaa have a similar resonance, if not a singular vision for racial, social, and economic justice. Marx's famous 11th thesis on Feuerbach stated, quote, "The philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways, but the point is to change it. Guiding principles are meant to be acted upon to do just that. Imagine if building on these connected guiding principles could lead to creating a new united working class consciousness. Imagine if promoting the values and practices of Kwanzaa could assist in strengthening the working class to rise up against capitalism. Together, these cultural and socialist principles can help the working class to build on multiracial unity." Now, I get it. Black nationalists don't want so-called racial unity, and I'm honestly not even mad at that. I don't think that's the necessarily the project. I don't agree necessarily it's some do that Black people, African people have to heal the world and all of that. I'm saying it as an internal argument to the African or Black struggle. These ideas, I think, still have to be debated within the world majority, colonized peoples movements. These considerations should be included. And to ignore them allows for what I was just showing and many of the backsliding reactionary, as I keep arguing, we can have more conversations publicly and more popularly today than ever about what ails us. But the problem is those conversations are as much as ever propagandized, mythologized, and narrowed to very conservative and reactionary conversations. So for instance, again, I just putting this together again, didn't even think of it. But remember, as I've pointed out before, Dr. Melina Abdullah, who runs, among other things, is one of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement in LA, comes out of the Karenga tree and is a supporter of and helping to create the collaboration between Black Lives Matter and One United Bank. So this, again, the idea that some have gotten back to me with that you can't be critical of Kwanzaa because it's just a holiday is missing not only what I can't believe I didn't even say this back to them, the politics of holidays. Everything is political. And that many people continue to adorn themselves in Black radicalness or radical Blackness and move in reactionary directions. So as I think it was appropriate, if we and please go back and watch part one, and maybe this will be one of the few times. Try not to go back. I actually don't like going back and watching my own stuff, but I think this may be a good time for me to do that and go back and see maybe I didn't make the argument well enough. I could certainly improve the argument in presenting Rodney's argument, or people could just check the link and see for themselves what he's saying about Nyereri's approach to Ujamaa, the differences between scientific socialism and African socialism or traditional African communalism, and some of the failures and misreadings of Marx, et cetera, and so forth. So anyway, I did want to touch on that at least very briefly. Similarly, please go to the Black Power Media channel and check out the new post of one of the classic debates on called "What's in a Name: African, African American, Black, or American" from 1989. And I watched it last night, and I'm thinking, I feel it was on one hand great to see Teray again, and but we've gone nowhere, and it seems like we've made no progress on that issue. How, not only how we're to be named or what that name should mean for our politics. So please go check that out, because it's just crazy relevant. All right. Let me do a very quick break, and then we'll get right back into Hill Harper and in the specifics of part 2 of the Black Capitalism and Bitcoin. All right, so back in just a quick second. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right, everybody. I feel like that was disjointed. I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to check that again and come back to that as well. I'll check the comments later if I dare. But anyway, or we'll just keep having the debate and the argument, come back around. So I wanted to take more time than I did the other day to actually look at the argument of Hill Harper, and then to really go through it, and then to really look at how others' arguments have been brought into this discussion, and what I think is right and going wrong with that as well. So this is the website for the Black Wall Street app. No, I'm sorry, the Black Wall Street Wallet app. And right there on the front page, and again, the quick of it is, it's an application owned by Hill Harper that allows for anyone to create an account, download the app, that is, create an account, connect that account to other, as we'll revisit again briefly, other non-Black owned applications and platforms, but to use this as a way to trade, buy, sell, and hold Bitcoin. Only Bitcoin, no other cryptocurrency. As Hill Harper will remind in the video we're about to watch, again, Bitcoin is the premier cryptocurrency. Other coins are not the same. And this platform only allows you to buy and trade Bitcoin. I have not been able to, I keep trying, but I have not been able to find the specifics on how this app makes money in those transactions, or how much. And I have not performed any myself, because I have not actually gone beyond the initial download. I honestly couldn't bring myself to do it. I just don't want to do it. And there's nothing in the literature or anywhere I can find that explains in detail. But in general, there are digital wallets, and then also digital crypto wallets. They're not entirely the same thing. Crypto wallets are, as this one is, allows you to not only buy and sell a cryptocurrency, but holds a key to your Bitcoins in this case, which are held, of course, on the Bitcoin blockchain. So the wallet itself is obviously just digital, and it is not. It is itself the key, as others have described it, that gives you access to the blockchain where your Bitcoins are held. There are hot and cold wallets, that is, ones that are the difference being, are they connected or not to the internet? This is connected to the internet. In other words, as I've been learning, if you get into it more and you have more stored up, people start to advocate, if you have a whole bunch of Bitcoins, maybe moving them off of certainly the exchanges and out of digital wallets as well, and into more tangible offline storage devices that work like little USBs, and then they're not connected to the internet until you connect, and then you can gain access. But in other words, they're all just keys, because the Bitcoin are always on the blockchain. They cannot be removed. The blockchain is the permanent ledger that cannot be adjusted, and that's that. So I just wanted to make sure, to at least to a certain extent, I've explained that part of it, if that wasn't clear to anybody who watches this. Now, but in general, where the crypto, and as I suggested on Friday, and I'll come back to this, where where these crypto wallets make their money is in the transactions of people buying and selling and trading, or in the amount of people that these platforms bring to other platforms. So, so anyway, I'll leave it there for now. But I want us to watch this video that they have right there on the front of the homepage, because it is, in many ways, it's a summary of the same argument. I've watched more over the weekend. There's so many of these interviews that Harper has given, and he's clearly got, again, he's got his stump speech, his stump approach, and because he's never in a situation where he's challengeable, or people who are interviewing him are in any way critical of what's happening, he's not pushed on any of this stuff, and it's very misleading. So let's.
Different cryptos out there, 99% of them are meme coins and basically, just the trash. And so you need to educate folks first, because what we want to do is grow wealth and build wealth, get people into ascending value asset classes, not get them into meme coins. We're trying to not do what Robinhood does, because Robinhood is my partner. We don't want people just getting on trading just to trade, right? Because you end up losing. We want to build wealth. We want you to dollar cost average into ascending value asset class, which is my goal is to have every Black person in America have 1 million Satoshis in their wallet.
Okay, so again, as I feel like I was rushing on Friday, but it's important to note these phrases, these catchphrases that really do sound good, and they are eye-popping and whatever. Ascending value asset class, just something that is going to appreciate in value and that will be turned into an investment that you can cash in on at some point and make money off of. His comparison to Robinhood, the trading platform, which encourages or allows for trading in all the other or not, I don't know about all, but many other coins, cryptocurrencies beyond Bitcoin, is what his point is that as a regular routine Wall Street trading platform, Robinhood allows for and encourages people to invest in and take risks in all kinds of other areas. Harper's argument here is that because Bitcoin is so solid, and it's not a stable coin, but because it's so solid and is an ascending value asset, he's not setting anybody up. So he's saying that I'm telling you, you're just investing in Bitcoin, and you're just investing at small retail levels, and your dollar cost averaging, which again just means you're taking a regular doable amount each paycheck or however often, and allotting it to purchasing Bitcoin. And then his goal is, he says he wants all of us to have 1 million Satoshis. Every Black person, every man, woman, child, every house would, so that, that's where I was guessing before, that it would be, if we're doing sort of a nuclear family average, anywhere from 3 to 5 people per household owning 1 million Satoshis. Satoshis are just small fractionalized pieces of a actual Bitcoin. Can't afford a full Bitcoin because one coin is somewhere around $50,000, I think now, 40, whatever. We don't have that. So you can get a Satoshi, which is just a piece of it. And as I showed in the show Friday, 1 million Satoshis comes out to about just somewhere around $480 US. So for following the logic here, What Hill Harper is saying, invest start trading in Bitcoin using my wallet, which will make me money and will eventually make you money because you're going to buy at a retail value small amounts of Bitcoin, Satoshis, and you're going to amass about $500 worth of Satoshis per household, per person in each household, which would come to anywhere to, what is that, $1,500 to $2,500 per household in Satoshi value, and that this is what's going to build wealth for the Black community. I have never seen Hill Harper been asked in at least a dozen of these interviews at this point, at least. He's never been pushed on how this builds wealth, how investing in a speculative product at these levels turns into collective wealth. And no one, to my previous point about this issue with Kwanzaa and socialism, how does this wealth that is created lead to political power and redistribution and ultimately redefinition of wealth? That's never raised. The implicit, unspoken part, I think, is that with that old argument, if we make more money, we can then have more influence over the political world. But somehow, 40 million Black people, each worth $500 in Satoshis, is what he's going to argue is going to make people have to come through Black people to trade and engage in Bitcoin and make Black people wealthy, thus closing the racial wealth gap, etc. Okay, let's just continue.
So that's interesting because most people you'll see will try to create a coin to build wealth in the community. Why did you choose wallet over coin, or is that something that's coming?
No. I mean, we'll see. I never want to say what's not coming in the future, but Bitcoin is already a proven platform. It does what it does very well. It's a store of value. See, I want Black folks. I want us to be storing value. The biggest problem, if you break down.
Store value. So first of all, he's asked, why haven't you created your own cryptocurrency or coin, as opposed to encouraging us engaging in Bitcoin? To his credit, I'll say this: I would have been more aggressive in calling him some sort of other, probably libelous term, if he had created a coin, because the people who are creating coins are really, I think, the most aggressive hustlers. But so my problem with what Hill Harper is doing is more, I guess, insidious and more at the level of broad politics. That instead of rebranding, I'm arguing he's doing, an old reactionary Black capitalist worldview, an argument that doesn't lead us anywhere, which is itself, I think, a trifle, a trifle hustle. Instead of, he's saying, I mean, he's repackaging that Black capitalist hustle as a sound, reasonable investment strategy, I guess, is what I as opposed to sort of a real sort of Ponzi scheme, overt, more Ponzi, because I think all of this crypto, I think all of Wall Street is a Ponzi scheme, but the more aggressive street level Ponzi, smash and grab, maybe, instead of a Ponzi, just a smash and grab of a pump and dump, of pump up a coin and then run off with whatever people's investments you can get. It's not quite that, but it's on some level, I think, even more dangerous, because he's promoting an ideology of Black capitalism, and suggesting that this is in any way a solution we should be focused on, and that's
down money.
But a store of value, by the way, that's what I meant. Sorry, store of value just means it's going to increase in value. It's something that it's a stock, and that's why I don't know if it's in the clip I have, but that's why Michael Hudson at one point said it's like people telling you you're going to solve your economic problems by buying Andy Warhol paintings. A painting can be a store of value as well, but it's not a sound economic strategy for the collective that's a colonized, oppressed group.
95% of Black folks' portfolio is in cash. Yeah. Cash is a descending value asset class, and they just printed 22% of the circulating supply last year, so you know it's going to drop even more. Inflation is what keeps us poor. So if you're wealthy, the top 1% keeps 95% of their portfolio in what? Ascending value assets, real estate, high value stocks, blue chips, mutual funds, gold, right? So if we're keeping all our money in cash, and every night your head is the pillow, you are poor when you wake up because you're in cash. Wow. And every night their head is the pillow, they're actually richer because it's an ascending value asset class. What's the least friction, lowest barrier, in my opinion, looking towards the future ascending value asset? It's buying real estate on the blockchain that is Bitcoin, which is buying Satoshis.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there is, that's one of the problems. There is accuracy in part of what he said. That's why I mentioned on Friday, George Jackson already explained this, and why in my argument around buying power, George Jackson is the only so-called luminary that I found that was perfectly accurate on the issue of buying power. Not Du Bois, who, as I mentioned, Amos Wilson and Dr. Gordon Nemhard, Doctors Gordon Nemhard and Amos Wilson have, I think, misread and misapplied to their analyses. It's not Malcolm, it's not Martin, it's not whoever. George got it right. And in fact, I should have had it ready. But George got it right on this issue. So the little bit of right that Hill Harper gets into here, again, this is going back to this problem that I keep having, where we can get some accuracy of an issue discussed, but not the appropriate analysis. All right. Okay, so here it is. Let me. It's. We'll come back to Hill in a second. Let's look at the George. With few exceptions, none clearer and more direct than that of George Jackson, has there been a resounding near unanimity on this issue. Jackson, exceptional as he was, here too stands largely alone. So what is to be done after a revolution has failed? After our enemies have created a conservative mass society based on meaningless electoral politics, spectator sports, and a 3% annual rise in purchasing power strictly regulated to negate itself. Turn the page, please. With a corresponding rise in the cost of living. What is to be done about an expertly, scientifically calculated, contrapositive mobilization of the entire society? What can we do with the people who have gone through the authoritarian process and come out sick to the core? There will be a fight. Now, I have to admit, and looking at this now, I have to admit again, and maybe even apologize for, I cut that quote off intentionally, probably to make this book what at the time I was writing that buying power book, I was really trying to defang the politics, because I didn't want what was happening yesterday or over the weekend to happen with the buying power book. I didn't want people who in the Black community who don't agree with George Jackson to run off and think it's okay to engage in Black capitalism. But the next line, I believe George Jackson says, is we're going to have to dig some graves. But his point is, and was, in an appropriate analytical frame, yeah, you have purchasing power, and we're going to negate it with a rise in the cost of living. So, but he's not saying, as Harper is, that people are poor because of inflation. That's not why people are poor. Or I mean, I guess you could phrase it that way, but I would say it's not that inflation is what keeps us poor. It's capitalism. It's colonialism. And it's not, and to George Jackson's correctness, George wasn't following that up with, the fight is we have to be quicker to buy real estate on the blockchain, or we have to be quicker to invest in a new technology. That's not what George Jackson's argument was. And that's why I'm saying we need a political organized movement that assumes political power. That's it. And as Kwame Ture himself had said, that's all I want is power. That's it. That's all I want. You can have everything else. I just want the power, the political power. I think that this is sort of what his point is. You erase all of these arguments and claims, that is of Black capitalists and Black business and buy Black and bank Black. Because if you have political power, you define what wealth is, you define how it's created, you define how it's distributed, and you can assure that everybody is taken care of. And you don't have to leave it to investment strategies. Listen to also what Harper is saying. The rich folks, the white folks, they're invested in land and whatever other areas of the economy he listed, in gold and all this other stuff. He's saying we can't get in on that. It's too late. We're in dollars, a descending asset value class, descending value class. They're in an ascending value asset class. We can't catch them. But if we get on the blockchain and buy up Satoshis, we can do it. Never mind the hypocrisy or the contradiction of the value of the Satoshi is measured in US dollars. The value of Bitcoin is still measured in US dollars. The people who are encouraging us to invest in Bitcoin so that their stock prices, stock value goes up, are doing that based on the US dollar. So this idea, as we're going to come back to, of this crashing the dollar and that being good for us doesn't make any sense. All right.
Yeah, over the next 50 years, what do you think we could do on an anniversary to close? Yeah.
I think I'll just be honest, and I'm not trying to just, blow smoke. Be real. I believe that our app, with adoption, has the potential to scale and close the wealth gap. The world is only holding, there's 2% of the world is holding Bitcoin. And if we actually can monopolize the coin, the world has to come to us to get it. There's only going to be 21 million minted. Mm-hmm. And so if we can be the culture, see, we can't forget that we are the power, the people. We can choose shit coin, doesn't matter what coin, but you want to choose a coin that actually has fundamental value. And if we as Black people decide Bitcoin is that thing, and we start holding it and trading it, then folks will have to come through us to get access to it, and it grows our wealth.
Yes. You think not being a Bitcoin is like missing out on a Dow like the 1950s?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because I believe, and you can replay this tape, I don't know if it's 4 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years, or 20 or 30, that there will be a time where we're not even talking about Bitcoin. We're just talking about Satoshi.
So let's get into this conversation, because you took me and Troy to...
So listen to the previous question from the brother here in the suit was that, are you saying that this moment is the same as being missing out on the Dow in the 1950s? And Harper says yes, but this is always the problem. And this is the problem that we face today. One, he's talking about full universal Black adoption. So again, he's talking about Black people acting in an organized way. If we had that capability, then obviously the goal would be to move in ways that have nothing to do with investing in a cryptocurrency. You would have the ability to have to impact the world politically and in terms of power that would make all of this moot. If you had 40 million Black people in this country operating on one political accord. But that's the point. He's not building an organization or a movement. He's encouraging everybody to invest, and all that would do is make him money. Again, and then it's even the theoretic. I can't even go through the steps theoretically, because that's the problem with the brothers' question about the 1950s and the Dow. Black people then didn't have the capital or the resources to invest any more then than they do today in Bitcoin. Black people don't have the ability to put $500 a person into Bitcoin. And even if that were the case, it's not going to offer the returns that would make that investment valuable or lead to the kind of economic or other power that Harper is claiming here. And as I showed on Friday, and we can probably come back to today, Bitcoin, there's the 21 million is already a number that's wrong, because 3 million has already been reported to be disappeared. People have lost it. And by the way, because what I was talking about earlier with the keys, the key that your wallet is, if you lose it, you lose the money permanently. And there's somebody right now, I don't know if there's been an update, but recently over the last couple of weeks, there's somebody right now I think there's I have to find that again. I think it's like a more than 1 million, I think. Or the value of his Bitcoin is 3 million, upwards of $3 million. But he lost his key, and you only get 10 shots with your password, and then you're permanently locked out. And he is, I think, down to his last 2 attempts. So anyway, so even if he, anyway. This is
A lunch that changed our life. That was probably the nicest. Bel Air. The Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
I'm not sure. I might be sure. We didn't even take pictures of it. It was like high level, top secret
everything
stuff.
top secret.
That was a good lunch.
But yeah, so we was in Bel Air, and you was talking about Satoshis, and I know what Satoshis is because I'm in the space. But I'm assuming the vast majority of people have never heard of Satoshi.
Right.
Satoshi Nakamoto was he's the founder.
He's not missing any names anymore.
First of all, I believe Satoshi is Black.
Okay.
I saw the shirt.
Wow.
Where's the shirt?
Wow.
Yeah, somebody has a shirt.
Yeah, somebody got the shirt. Satoshi Black. Yeah.
Satoshi's Black.
Satoshi is Black.
It's a Black name. That's for sure.
no, it's not. Actually.
Satoshi is Black.
That's what I said.
Swahili.
Wow.
So, all right. Can you explain to people who Satoshi is and what is a Satoshi as far as how you're explaining? Because how you explained it to me was something I never really thought about it before, but you made a lot of sense as far as like how we used to look at gold as gold bars.
Yes.
Now we measure gold by ounces.
Yes.
And you're saying like Bitcoin eventually is going to become out of reach for most people, so we're going to have to measure it by Satoshi. So
Yes,
can
exactly.
you kind of just explain that?
So Satoshi Nakamoto, no one knows who he or she or the group is, right? And there's a brilliance behind this. And I encourage everyone to read the Bitcoin white paper. You should read it. Just read it and educate yourself. The fact is that I believe Satoshi is Black because of the ethos on which Bitcoin is built. It's the fairest form. And I believe we as Black people, we've never asked for handouts or extra treatment. We just want fair, because we know when it's fair, when the playing field's fair, we win. When it's stacked against us, we don't. But at the end of the day, it's completely fair. What makes it fair? Compare it to fiat or money in central banking, which is inherently, systemically, institutionally racist. Okay, if I have $10 million and I want access to $2 million, okay, a bank will give me that money and charge me like 2.5% interest. Very inexpensive money. If I only have $2,000, I can barely get a loan for $200, and that loan is going to be
30%.
25%, 30%, whatever. And so very expensive money. The beautiful thing about the Bitcoin platform is that no matter how much you hold, it does not weight to you anymore. It's completely fair. One Satoshi is exactly as strong as one Satoshi being held by someone who may hold a billion Satoshis. You understand? So just because you hold more of it doesn't mean you have more leverage. It's all equal. So to me, Satoshi is black because they built a fair playing field. Because that's all we want. Because then we win.
Equal level playing field.
That's it.
And a Satoshi is a
Satoshi.
I'll look in the chat here in a second. Because I honestly don't. I don't think anything he just said makes any sense whatsoever. If you have more Bitcoin than somebody else, their purchase, other people's purchase of Bitcoin or Satoshis is increasing the value of what you have. So and if you cash out, you have more money. Or if you sell all of yours, I mean, yeah. So I don't understand how having less levels the playing field and again, when you read the white paper, I was just looking for it again. I actually haven't made it a focus of, because the white paper is technical, is a technical explanation of how blockchain works and how it allows for a secrecy of exchange. It does not explain or show how there is going to be a distribution or redistribution that allows for people to close gaps in inequality or to achieve political power. It is simply saying you can trade and send on the blockchain privately without a central bank being involved. I don't see how that levels a playing field. That just means those who are on that field. Anyway, by the way, and somebody in the chat room, I did look previously. Really appreciate this. Thank you for the super chat. Satoshi has multiple students from Stanford cult of the dead cow. Yes, I've seen that as well. I've seen that that claim as well. And by the way, if Satoshi is black, how, again, that would be prove my point even further. Like, what difference does it make? How much Bitcoin does Satoshi have? Because one of the things that they were saying, let's see, how much is it worth now? The real identity is unknown, blah, blah, blah. Satoshi has mined 1,125,150 tokens up to block 54,316 in the chain. At the time, Bitcoin did not, but now each Bitcoin is priced over $56,000. That makes Bitcoins owned by Satoshi worth over $56 billion. So this would be my point. If Satoshi is black and is worth over $56 billion, first of all, again, the value is in US dollars. What good is it that one black person or even a small collective of black people has $56 billion? How does that help anybody else? How does that close anything, any terms of gaps in this or that? How does it help anybody else? Whatever. Wait. It's a representation, Dr. Ball. We got to paint Satoshi as black for the culture. Right on. I know that's a joke, or I'm at least taking it as a very funny joke, but that's again the point I'm getting at here is that this has become sort of the politics from Kawaida to Kwanzaa to crypto. We keep wrapping ourselves in insufficient politics and claiming the pride and the beauty of the blackness for the culture. But anyway, yeah, so I'm not anyway. Let me just keep going.
Of a Bitcoin, right?
Yes, there are 100 million Satoshis in every one Bitcoin, which shows you the genius of the development. So, okay, so the total Bitcoin that will ever be minted is 21 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we know it's a scarce asset class, right? Scarcity is what creates value.
So scarcity, right? So of the 21 million, 3 million has already been wiped out because it's lost or whatever. Another 1.1 million is with Satoshi. In previous videos, we've gone through the Bitcoin billionaires, the Winklevosses and all of them, and the Elon Musks and all of them. They got all of theirs. So when I'm hearing Harper say that the fractionalization is brilliant and allows for people to invest in 100 millionth of one coin, all I'm hearing is this is how Wall Street has always worked. You can always get in at the retail level and buy up little bits of stock and say that you're participating in Wall Street and that you're a player in the game. And at one point years ago, there was a credit card commercial that used to make fun of that, by showing people who said, you know, I got like one 1/100th of a stock, and I'm now a player, and they're balling out in the back of a limo, and it's making fun of the fact that they don't really have that money. And that's why they have a credit card. But that's what is being advocated here as not just, hey man, if you got a little bit of money, don't go blow it on a whatever. Put it in some investment and see if you can make a little bit of money. They're not even doing it at that. They're doing it as this is the revolution. This is what's going to close the wealth gap. This is what we need to get in on. This is what's going to make us a powerful player unlike any time in world history. Don't worry about the politics, although I'm going to come back out and have you vote for my boy Obama or, you know, his political tree in the next election. Don't worry about all of that. Don't worry about political organizations. All that radical stuff don't worry about all that. Make sure you watch me on my latest TV show and my new film in my next Tyler Perry, you know, presentation where I show up again playing a fictional cop who valorizes the good guy. You remember that one? Now, forget all of that. Get into some Satoshis,
right?
Because it's an ascending value asset class.
But scarcity is what creates an ascending value asset class if people consider it to be something that's valuable. It's just like a piece of art. If you have a great artist who does a one-off, it will go up in value over time. But if that same piece of art, that same artwork, you make 10,000 lithos, don't sign them and just put them out, they're worth nothing. And it's the same image. The same is true for money. The U.S. government is just printing money. The value's going down. Bitcoin is locked. The 48 million millionaires in the world, there's only 21 million Bitcoin. That means there's not even enough Bitcoin for each millionaire to hold one. And if we as Black people start holding them, they have to come through. So Satoshis, to me.
And again, what does that mean? They have to come through. It's not explained. What does it mean you have to come through? Because even at the levels he's encouraging we invest, we're not going to have enough that it would make people have to come through. And come through what? To do what? It's not current. Bitcoin is not currently being used as a currency, which, as I'm going to come to in a little bit, requires political power. So at the point Bitcoin becomes somewhere used as official currency at the levels where we can really use it as we would use the dollar today, that would require some sort of political power shift and implementation. And the idea that 40 million black people have a couple 100,000 or a couple 100 million Satoshis isn't going to, whose value is based on the dollar at this point anyway. So, I mean, it doesn't, that's what I'm saying. Like at the point Bitcoin is, which is supposed to be removed from the dollar and the central bank, and have its own store of value or become its own store of value, how then, oh my God, it makes less sense every time I listen to it. How then does, for that currency to replace the dollar and not be pegged to the dollar or valued in the dollar would require a political power shift I really don't even know. And he's never
Will be
pushed on
that
this. So
form of value.
anyway,
Like you said, they used to price gold in gold bars. It got so expensive, they started pricing it in ounces. Same thing's going to happen with Bitcoin.
and by the way, that's sort of the point. If you have a whole bunch of gold, and then a political apparatus comes into power under the guise of Richard Nixon and takes the US dollar off the gold standard, reducing the value in gold, that is a political process. This nonsense of the federal government printing money, which it does do, and I'm saying that is itself nonsense, not that Harper is calling it nonsense, because it is nonsense, is the tail end of a political process that allows for people to make that decision and have the impact on the currency, or the currency itself play the role of the political imperial emissary, which is I'm going to get to when we talk about Michael Hudson's work. So the currency is an offshoot of a political project. It's an extension of a political project. It is not itself a political project that can operate in a vacuum. For a currency to have value, it has to be backed by something, whether it's something, and I actually don't mean like gold. I mean backed by what the US dollar is backed by. Dollar diplomacy, the gun, the military. The belief in several 100 million people that it's not going to collapse. So if Bitcoin becomes official currency, that will have meant that a powerful political player has imposed that on the world. And it doesn't even require that they have the lion's share of it. Although they already do. So I mean, this idea that Black people are going to catch up to the other major investors in Bitcoin by buying Satoshis, it just doesn't make any sense
I
to
don't
me.
know, but that's why on our platform, we're the first platform out of all the digital wallets. We are letting you hold and price it in Satoshis. Everyone else you'll buy, it'll go 0.00003333222 of a BTC. You're going to see how many Satoshis.
Wow.
So,
Right?
So
2,000 Satoshis. 5,000.
So all that does is make it seem like in your wallet that you have more than you really have. That just perpetuates the fantasy, what he just described there. Because we're going to show you your bank statement in Satoshis. So that would be like if you looked at your bank statement in pennies as opposed to dollars and read that number. Yo, I got 17 million pennies in the bank. But hold up the ledger. Look at my 17 million pennies in the bank.
in a sense, because my brother Wall Street Travis here, it's like breaking down the brick, right?
Let's trap.
Breaking down the brick. But I want to talk about a piece of the platform that you're building, because it's not just trading; it's actually an educational piece.
Yeah.
I know you guys just came off of 30 City Talk.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that piece?
Yeah, my co-founder, Naja Roberts. Naja, she's over there by Trap.
And
She is, let me tell you, Naja Roberts is my hero. I'm so lucky to have her as a co-founder of this platform. She's been on the road going city to city because to truly deal with the wealth gap, she says it all the time, you got to meet people where you are. And what makes her such a genius is that she's only one of 2 brick and mortar cryptocurrency exchanges in the country. Hers is in Inglewood. in the community. She said, she's building Silicon hoods. Forget Silicon Valley. And so she's been going. She was in Mound Bayou. That's why I mentioned Mound Bayou is one of the poorest and most challenged zip codes in this country.
Where's that at?
It's in Mississippi.
Mississippi.
And they were so shocked when her caravan came in, the Black Wall Street wallet caravan came in, because they're like, no one even talks about us. No one cares about Mount Bayou. But the point is that we have to care about each other. Dr. King said we're all tied together in a single garment of mutual destiny. That means we are all linked. And if we actually understand our power and link it together, we are unstoppable, y'all.
Dr. King also said we need federal public policy to redistribute wealth, and that capitalism is a problem. As I started to show off on Friday, with this book here, this new book here, I don't need to hear that from you, Andy Young. King clapped back. You're a capitalist. I'm not. The trouble is that we live in a failed system. Capitalism does not permit an even flow of economic resources. With this system, a small privileged few are rich beyond conscience, and almost all others are doomed to be poor at some level. That's the way the system works. And since we know that the system will not change the rules, we are going to have to change the system. Now, I know that if I read that to Hill Harper or his crew, the response would likely be, Dr. King didn't have the benefit of living at a time where blockchain existed. And that's why we go back in that circular argument of technology does not change social relationships. It exacerbates and intensifies them. I would need to see the argument of where that has ever been challenged. I build my argument largely, again, off the work of Huey Newton, who explained on the technology question that technology is itself produced out of the exploitation of working people and then used to intensify their exploitation. Or people like even Harold Innis in my media studies days, the bias of communication. His focus was on communicative technology, but I think it applies anywhere else. New communication technology has only intensified and worsened social relationships. And even to Huey Newton's point, he used the same point to say that it's communications technology that has aided the expansion of empire and made national borders moot, irrelevant. So again, these references to King are just super irritating because they are totally misrepresentative of him and his argument and misapplied.
I always tell people that the 20-year period to hold the S&P is the best. What period do you think everyone should hold Satoshi and Bitcoin?
Okay, so that's a great question. I believe, and this is my personal feeling,
Okay.
I believe you start collecting and holding Bitcoin and never sell. And that's why on our platform, eventually, you're going to be able to just take out a loan against your Bitcoin. I want you to be able to hold it. Everybody has liquidity challenges, right? So I'm not saying you need access to liquidity, no doubt. But just like extremely wealthy families get a really beautiful piece of property. I bought the Fisher Mansion in Detroit, as an example. I bought it from Michael Fisher. It's a 100-year-old house. To create liquidity, they don't sell the property, they hold the property and just take equity out on its ascending value. It's an ascending value asset class that you hold and you pass down. That's how you create cross-generational wealth transfer. I believe the same is true with Bitcoin. We collect it now. We hold it as the value ascends for us. We then begin to, if we need liquidity, take a loan against it, and you'll be able to do that on the platform.
Yeah, like Nas said, long crypto, sickness and health. I'm forever long crypto. I've been in crypto. I believe in it. I believe in Ethereum and I believe in Bitcoin. Other coins too, but I feel like those are the two leaders in the space. I actually like Ethereum more than I like Bitcoin. I want to get your opinion on a few different things. Ethereum.
Hold on, before he answers this piece on Ethereum. So again, my broader argument is really exemplified here. All of these efforts that adorn themselves in radical blackness, misrepresent black leaders and histories and arguments and claims and all of that, are really doing so to bring us back to very reactionary politics. He just outlined a traditional black capitalist investment strategy that is meant to enrich a handful of people who run these platforms and wallets and the people they're attached to, and a few people who might make good on their investments in like they would on any kind of stock. As they pitch this as collective actual political strategy. So instead of saying we should organize for political power, because again, when he comes back to that question of political power, his is always going to be to vote for the Democrat. That's not what I'm saying, but that was what would be what he is saying as a response to a position like mine that says we need political power and not to be worried about investments. But here he'll pitch, we don't need. So again, Bitcoin here is described not as a currency, but as sending value asset stock that if invested in now and held on to can at some point, as he said, in the future, force everybody to come through Black America. But right here, he's saying, which is even more realistic and equally reactionary, oh, they're not going to have to come to us as some sort of collective power, but individually, we'll be able to use our stored up value of Bitcoin stock as collateral for loans from who? To do what? To buy a home as he did? Or is this going to be where we hear about the grand illusions of that loan can be used to start a business? So then theoretically, the people could use would have to support and as a customer support that business. They would have to themselves take out a loan on the collateral of their Bitcoin investments, their Satoshi investments. This isn't what we need. This isn't where we need to go. And now the brother next to him is saying, and you're talking about Bitcoin, I'm even more excited about Ethereum.
To me, I think has more of a use case and more reason why it's valuable than Bitcoin. I feel like Bitcoin is more branded, like it's just like the brand name, but I don't necessarily know if it has
almost 9,200 different cryptos out there. 99% of them.
Is that where it ended?
More branded.
Oh, you know what?
Like,
okay, so later on, so later on, I just watched so many of these. So later on, what this is where Harper ends up admitting that he's saying Bitcoin is the more rational investment at this point, but that he is also a supporter of Ethereum and is mining Ethereum. Which, by the way, means another investment of thousands of dollars in the not only the amount of computer technology in hard drives, but the quality that is necessary to have them running 24 hours a day to mine, to solve these mathematical math problems, to mine and be rewarded an Ethereum coin, which will then be, as I've shown in other videos, particularly around the one with the rapper Tory Lanez, which will be then pitched through non-fungible token claims that force you to buy Ethereum, to use Ethereum to buy the NFT, which is again an investment in some speculative product that may increase in value at some point, like art. Yo, this is not this isn't the direction in which we need to go. So again, I was rushing, but I think I did actually cover this point that when you go to the Black Wall Street Wallet app and sign up, the first thing that you have to do, and this is where I stopped because I just didn't feel like doing it, is you have to go through both Prime Trust and or Plaid, two other platforms, to connect your bank accounts so that you can begin trading, et cetera, and so forth. And this is what I was trying to say earlier in the year, that for Prime Trust, they were able to get their new series of funding and investment largely because they had captured more business, like the Black Wall Street Wallet app, in which makes money on delivering people to these platforms to conduct the business. So the doorway can be Black owned, the portal can be Black owned, but the blockchain space, the banking space, the platforms that verify your banking and protect your transactions, all of that is white corporate hedge fund, private equity group stuff. So again, there can be no closing of gaps when the process you're using to theoretically close the gap is enriching the very people who are already rich. So this company just got 64 million in their Series A round funding. So they got venture capital out funding support because they had crossed 100 million in annual revenue in business from their customers. This was reported at the end of July of last year, 2021. And it was earlier in that year, 2021, that Black Wall Street app announced its launching in relationship with Prime Trust. And then as I was trying to show here, let me stop that and show this one. Just to come back and show at least where, and all of these links are in the show notes, just so we're clear. How these crypto wallets make money. There is a misconception that crypto wallets make money by cutting a fee when you make a transaction. This has been falsely installed because of the practices of some exchanges, often wrongly considered as wallets. And again, this is what I'm not entirely clear. So Harper's app calls itself the Black Wall Street Wallet app. So it's not like an exchange, but it does function in some way as a Bitcoin exchange because it allows you to buy, sell, and store your Bitcoin. So maybe the exchange component of it is taken out because it's using Plaid and Prime Trust. Or maybe because it's only letting you engage directly in Bitcoin and not other currencies, so it doesn't qualify as an exchange. So that's the part I'm still not entirely sure on. So it's either working as an exchange where it's charging fees per transaction. The fees a wallet will charge you are actually network fees aimed at rewarding miners involved in securing the transaction being operated and registered on the ledger. Wallets are not the one mining your transaction, although they could also operate an independent full node involved in transaction. So that's where I think the Plaid and I'll come back to that. The Plaid and Prime Trust relationships come in. So Plaid is a financial services company based in San Francisco. The company builds a data transfer network that powers fintech and digital finance products. Plaid's product, a technology platform, enables applications to connect with users' bank accounts. It allows consumers and businesses to interact with their bank accounts, check balances, and make payments through different financial technology or fintech applications. The company operates Visa announced it was intending to acquire Plaid in 2020 for $5.3 billion. Visa later abandoned the deal. after opposition from the State Department. So currently, the key people are still Zach and William Hockey. Yeah. Oh, right. That's why I had to look up his because he didn't have a picture here. So I had to go here. I'm just following all my old links just to, you know. So, but again, yeah, that's so Zachary gets paid every time Black empowerment is engaged through Hill Harper's. Oh my goodness. But that's so again, yeah. So anyway, that's it's crazy misleading. Another way wallets make money is by generating traffic to exchanges which are ready to pay hefty fees for new customers. That was how I was suggesting that they were making money via Plaid and or Prime Trust, by driving traffic to those websites and to those platforms and encouraging people to engage. Because it just as a reminder, this is back to the first front page of Hill Harper's. Our app is fully secured by 2 leading financial platforms. Prime Trust is used to transfer over $1.5 billion of digital money every month. And Plaid is, I guess, largely does the same thing, is trusted by major banks and credit unions, Venmo, Robinhood, and Stripe. So I know Robinhood is robbing the hood, but you all use the same stuff they're doing, they're using. When you do a transaction on our app, Plaid encrypts all the information with its sophisticated algorithm. So if I'm reading that even correctly, once you log in through this black portal and black this and black that, your information is encrypted and protected by white-owned companies. So I don't know if that matters, but in terms of the presentation of the app, I think it's suggestive. All right. So as I said, a number of people, and I agree with this, and I'm still trying, have suggested that I get Michael Hudson on, The Economist, to talk about, oh, no, I didn't want to close that. I didn't want to close that because we're going to come back to that. There's a little bit of fun I want to have at the end. So I just so a little teaser. I definitely found out why I've never been invited to, because there was a time a while back where people were saying you should get invited to Crystal Ball and Saagar and Enjeti's show, now Breaking Points. And I haven't watched it. I stopped watching and now I found out why that will never happen, or why it's not likely ever to happen. And it's fascinating. So we'll come back to that in a little bit. But a lot of people have been, relative to me, a number of people have said, you got to have Michael Hudson on to talk about Bitcoin. And then similarly, you should listen to Max Keiser. Max Keiser, the economist, former Wall Street guy who's on RT, a very popular guy, and who was cited by Isaiah Jackson, who wrote the book Bitcoin in Black America, as the reason why Jackson got involved and is encouraging now that Black people follow him into the cryptocurrency arena. Well, in 2 parts, Michael Hudson recently went on to discuss these related issues with Max, and I would like us to watch that conversation. Yeah, let's watch that conversation. So let me move it ahead to where they get started with it.
Avoiding the rest of 1945. Focus on Ukraine. Joe Biden, and we examine the
that guy's wild conservative too. RT is crazy conservative at the end of the day. But anyway. And the link is in there, by the way. The link to this is in there. Wow, my bad. I didn't realize. I was like, when are they getting to this thing?
Welcome back, Dr. Hudson.
All right, there
Well,
we
it's
go.
good to be back, Max.
Michael, your book, Super Imperialism, has become a big hit in the Bitcoin community. Were you aware of that? And why is that?
The community you're talking about looked at it as a how to do it book. They really didn't expect when America went off gold, they thought this is how we've controlled the world since 1945. Our gold means that we can tell other countries what to do. We can be the creditor and buy out their property. Once the Vietnam War and foreign military spending pushed the U.S. into deficit beginning in 1951, the gold cover of the dollar was ended. And in Washington, they were all worried, how are we going to express our diplomacy when we don't have any dollars to do it? And much to their surprise, when you're going off gold, confronted the foreign central banks with a problem. What were they going to do with all these dollars that the U.S. was throwing off by running a trade deficit, by spending abroad, by buying out foreign companies? They found they really couldn't do anything but recycle all these dollars to the United States by buying treasury bonds, because if they didn't recycle these dollars, their currency would go up and their exports would be priced out of the market. So my book explained how going off gold actually created a new form of international exploitation. And Herman Kahn at a meeting of Drexel Burnham said, my God, you've shown this is the biggest ripoff in history. This is great. Will you come and join me at the Hudson Institute? He told me the CIA and the State Department were the biggest buyers of super imperialism, and the Hudson Institute got an $85,000 grant for me to explain to the Treasury Department how the United States was getting a free ride, exploiting the rest of the world and making other countries pay for the military spending that was surrounding the rest of the world with military bases and taking off.
You are not for a gold standard, however.
I'm not for a gold standard, but gold is the only thing that that countries have been able to agree upon for the last few thousand years, except for silver. If you ask countries, what are you going to buy? Well, countries don't. How are you going to keep your savings? Well, countries don't want to save in the form of lending money to the U.S. Treasury and getting Treasury bonds, because the United States, if it doesn't like the holders, can just wipe out their holdings or freeze them. And in any case, there's no way that these dollars of U.S. debt are ever going to be repaid. Gold is something that everybody's already used to dealing with. And so I do expect that China, Russia, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and other countries are going to realize that if you're not going to hold dollars, if you're going to de-dollarize, then gold is the path of least resistance because it's familiar.
So the folks who are behind super imperialism, the US dollar-led global hegemony, they don't like for people or for countries to have excess savings, right?
Only if they invest their savings in treasury bonds or do what the OPEC countries did. They would send their oil earnings by buying U.S. stocks, U.S. bonds, or when Japan had its savings before the Plaza Accord. It spent all its money on real estate that went bust, like Rockefeller Center, that they lost $1 billion on, or prestige golf courses. So the question is, they don't want other countries to have savings that are not under the U.S. control. They don't want other countries to be independent.
And part of that dollar hegemony and keeping the US dollar as world reserve currency and control over various global economies is the ability to inflate that dollar supply, correct?
You can just print it electronically. There's no limit as to how many dollars. And the important thing is that you can print dollars and it's for free. If you buy gold, you actually have to produce something to get the revenue to spend on the gold. But the United States can simply print the dollars either in paper or electronically and essentially buy up foreign resources or buy imports or spend on military operations.
So a moment ago, when I mentioned that the Bitcoin community has embraced your book, Super Imperialism, your comment was that they see it as a how-to book. What did you mean by that?
That meant that they could see the problems of buying of dollarization, the problems of buying keeping your savings in US dollars led other countries to look for an alternative. And the Bitcoin community hopes that one alternative will be what Ecuador has done and save in the form of Bitcoin. That de-dollarization is going to create a market for non-dollar assets, either gold or Bitcoin or whatever. I don't see other countries buying Bitcoin because of the huge volume of savings that foreign central banks have.
So it's El Salvador has made Bitcoin legal.
So just real quick, I think what one important point here is that gets lost is that when the Bitcoin community is looking at Hudson's book, Super Imperialism, as a how-to guide, they're missing the point that I'm trying to make, which is what I would love to have a conversation with Hudson about more directly, because I don't think they get to it in this direct kind of way. What Hudson is describing is, yes, the dollar is imperial and other people want to get off the dollar and de-dollarize and find other solutions and options, but they're doing it as organized political entities with control over, in some cases like China, their own nations and national economies and their own politics. And the Bitcoin community, as he's describing, are the investors and holders of Bitcoin who hope the value in what they hold will go up if it's taken on by countries and used in their business of the day, or as some form of exchange or currency or an alternative to the dollar. That is a set of investors hoping to get rich. That's not a solution to a national, for Black people or any other crisis, or an internal crisis within a nation of inequality and maldistribution. That's not that's the point. So the point where the Bitcoin folks are missing in terms of the how-to guide, using his book as a how-to guide, is they're missing the initial, the fundamental primary step that must first be taken. That is, organized political power must be assumed for any of these things to work. And as Hudson is talking about, those who are already organized at national levels, China, Russia, India, etc., are looking to work together with each other to create alternatives that they can use to benefit their communities. And then within them, if we look at the internal politics of these countries, which I'm by no means an expert, they have their own ways of dealing internally with the distribution, or mal, of the wealth that they bring in. But the fundamental organization for political power is what Black Bitcoin crypto promoters engaged in the cryptoganda. I'm trying to intentionally, coin, pun intended as a term, leave out that fundamental step of political organization and leave it solely at the level of individual investment with a claim of a collective positive outcome. And it's maddening.
Tender, and they are also committed to adding it to their strategic reserves. And they're also going to be mining Bitcoin, converting virtually free geothermal energy or volcanic energy. But we are seeing in the region, Dr. Hudson, a contagion, if you will, other countries in the Central America. And this is typically the backyard of American imperialism for sure. They are looking to mimic El Salvador and adopt a Bitcoin standard, make Bitcoin legal. They have, of course, as you point out, a huge reserve of assets. But the thing about the Bitcoin price, like any free market, it can simply make that adjustment and the price would go higher. There's no limit to how many of the $100 trillion, let's say, in the global bond market could be absorbed by Bitcoin, right?
Yep, that's the question.
Have you had a change of heart? Because the last time we spoke about Bitcoin, you seemed to be ambivalent about it, if not slightly negative. Has there been a change in your thinking?
No, I'm, if anything, even more negative than before. The reason that Central American countries can think of Bitcoin is if they're going to save their money not in dollars, what can they do in a way that does not offend the United States? Because we're talking about client oligarchies, basically. They are remaining in power only at under U.S. support. So they can't really buy gold because that would be viewed as doing what China and Russia and other countries that are not friendly to the United States are doing. So the United States is quite happy to see them invest in Bitcoin. For one thing, as this bids up the price of Bitcoin, it enables Wall Street speculators to make a large amount of money. And at some point, if these countries ever spend the Bitcoin, it'll push it way down and they'll end up losing their money. And the United States is not averse to other countries losing their savings. It reduces their ability to be independent.
This is I hope I get it, and I hope others are getting it. What Hudson is saying, I think is, and this goes to all these questions about when Glenn Greenwald and others are saying, well, if Hillary Clinton is saying that Bitcoin is going to destabilize the dollar, so therefore those of us who want to be anti-Hillary should look to Bitcoin as a revolutionary, destabilizing. As I can't remember, if, we'll see here if they get to it in this one or in the next segment. I'm not even sure if it's in this. Anyway, one of the points that gets made is that El Salvador, it's not Ecuador they're talking about, it's El Salvador that I think they cleared that point up. El Salvador, and as they're predicting is going to be the case in other places like Panama and elsewhere, that are being encouraged to adopt Bitcoin. They're doing it because their currency is already primarily the US dollar. They don't use any other currency. So to buy Bitcoin, you would have to use the US dollar. To cash out your Bitcoin, would have to put it back in the US dollar. And the point that Hudson is making, I think brilliantly, is that they're willing to engage in this because it's going to make Bitcoin owners who have been pushing this. It's the Jack Dorseys and them encouraging El Salvador, a client state, as Hudson accurately describes it, to adopt Bitcoin to inflate their value in their stock value. But it's also in something that doesn't threaten the hegemony of the United States because as he just said, oh my God. They're not going to buy gold, El Salvador, because that would upset the United States. And Bitcoin isn't being used as a currency, so they could either buy it and inflate the value of those owning Bitcoin already, or if they spend it, as Hudson says, it would collapse all of the value of Bitcoin and those who have money in Bitcoin. But they can't spend it because where were they going to spend it? You can't buy anything with it. And the reserves that Hudson was talking about that other nations have that allows them to not go on Bitcoin is because they have reserves in other currencies, in the dollar, in gold, and whoever else, and whatever else. So they don't need to do that. So this idea, anyway, I mean, it's crazy. So Hudson is even less.
Like any other asset in history, with Bitcoin, it is in fact, without any equivocation, unconfiscatable. The United States, if they sent in the Marine Corps, they sent in the Pentagon, could not take El Salvador's Bitcoin away from them. And they don't need to sell Bitcoin ever. They can simply loan it out and use it as a reserve to finance, for example, Bitcoin City, which is a project that they have in mind.
Oh my God! So this is where I've always had a problem with Max and people like this on TV do with their economic analysis. You leave out all the politics. So I know they're going to talk about the economic hitman and stuff in passing, but does he really believe that if El Salvador or anybody else got all up on Bitcoin and the U.S. was upset and the U.S. would just stop and sit back and say, well, dag, but we can't confiscate it. So I guess that's it. That's it. They would just leave it alone and be like, well, you beat us. You're now free. I mean, it doesn't.
They're building hospitals, using this as a strategic reserve. The IMF is against them embracing Bitcoin because it puts the IMF out of business. And the very thing you talk about in super imperialism, about U.S. institutions using debt as a weapon. I don't see how this is going to be seen favorable by the super imperialists over at the IMF or the central banks around the world. There's a huge disconnect for me. Can you explain more? What am I missing?
Well, at least it's the least unfavorable. What else are countries going to do apart from buying gold, apart from buying treasury securities, what on earth? And they're not able to buy U.S. businesses because you know what happened to Venezuela when Venezuela tried that. There's really not much choice for them to do, and buying Bitcoin is not a threat to U.S. Hegemony. It's something independent. It's just a different game. It does use a lot of energy, as you pointed out. That's a huge. It does not it's not environmentally conservationalist. I think the U.S. thinks, well, there could be worse things than Bitcoin.
All right, just to be clear, the geothermal energy that El Salvador will be using to mine Bitcoin is in fact stranded energy or energy that's not being used. It's ecologically inert. It has no ecological footprint whatsoever. As a matter of fact, it pulls away from those industries that cause ecological problems. Also in El Salvador, the economy is set to grow and their carbon footprint is set to decline. Again, that goes against those people that have been supporting these white elephant projects on climate change. We're finding out, for example, in Great Britain, that the wind energy projects that they've built over the last 20 years are becoming useless because something like less than 10% utilization last year, because we have a collapse of actually the wind flows around the world due to the incredible pollution that generates by 8 billion people around the world. So again, help me understand, here's Hillary Clinton. She says that Bitcoin threatens the role of the dollar as reserve currency. The Biden administration warned that Bitcoin made sanctions difficult to apply to nations like Iran. Okay? You can do transactions with Iran and the U.S. can't stop it. You can save your wealth in Bitcoin and the U.S. can't stop it. I really don't understand your point in terms of this is something that the U.S. would encourage.
That is, wait a minute, because I don't think Hudson deals with this part of and I didn't hear it I didn't catch it this way the first time, or for several times I watched this. Wait a minute. The U.S., I'm happy to be checked on this, but the U.S. is not interfering with Iran's exchange and transactions with the world based on an interruption of the flow of U.S. dollars. It has as much to do with political diplomacy and pressure on other states not to deal with Iran for fear of losing some sort of whatever beneficial relationship they think they have with the United States as it is. So it's not that the U.S. is sitting there blocking, currency flows into Iran as a way to stop them from transacting with other parts of the world. They do it through deals and diplomacy and threats to other countries to say, if you deal with them, you're going to get punished. So it's not that Iran is getting around otherwise impossible sanctions because they're using Bitcoin.
It defunds the dollar. It's demonetizing gold. Gold is being sold and being channeled into Bitcoin. It's demonetizing gold. It's demonetizing the dollar. How can that be good for the U.S. dollar hegemony, Dr. Michael Hudson?
Because the one thing the United States fears more than anything else is losing, as other countries going on to gold, is losing the power that the U.S. gold stock still has, and of joining, basically, if you going on gold would make them part of the China, Russia, Iran, the socialist countries' alternative. And anything that is not gold is less of a structural threat. The United States isn't really worried about.
Excuse me for interrupting, but that's categorically false. Anything that's not gold, in this case with Bitcoin, by demonetizing gold, is not only is it a threat, but it's an extinction event. This will put an extinction event on U.S. dollar hegemony because it's 100% pure monetary signal, whereas gold at most might be 80 or 90% monetary signal. This is 100% This is kryptonite to America's Superman. This is our vulnerability, Dr. Michael Hudson. I mean, you're getting very close to. We got to carry this over to part 2. That's what we're going to do. But for now, thanks for being on Keiser Report.
All right, I'm going to come back and let's look at part two at least a little bit, but yeah, let's come back. Let me bring this back up and get to part two, because I definitely don't understand what Max was just arguing there. Especially the argument that it's an extinction level event if gold is demonetized, when gold is already not the standard upon which the US dollar is valued anymore, which is of course part of the problem that people point to. And if Bitcoin's value is still measured in gold or dollars, or in comparison to gold and dollars, how is it demonetizing gold if people use gold to get Bitcoin, and then that Bitcoin is valued vis-a-vis gold and anyway, somebody's gonna have to help me with that part. But let me let them finish up here.
Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to return to our conversation with Dr. Michael Hudson. He's out with his third edition of Super Imperialism. It's a book that is a classic. It's being reread again as we see kind of the American US dollar hegemony empire die. I mean, what you predicted would happen, Dr. Michael Hudson, I believe the book came out in the 1970s. What you said was in place and laying out the roadmap to imperial decline in the US dollar hegemony is now it's seemingly playing out in the year 2021 and 2022 and in the next year or so. Is that the case?
Yes, it's the case. Now that other countries have understood how the dollar standard works, they don't want to be a part of it. My book, Super Imperialism, is sold best in China. I think the first edition was 60,000 copies right away, and some bookstores, single bookstores, have sold 1,000 copies. So this became a guide to China. I was invited over to meet with numerous party officials there, and they decided, well, gee, if America can simply print dollars and buy up our industry and buy our exports just for creating them electronically, we don't want to be a part of that system. And if the dollar spending is what's surrounding us with military bases, the last thing we want is to recycle our savings and our foreign exchange reserves into US dollars, because that'll simply strengthen America's new Cold War. So the decision is they want to de-dollarize, and by de-dollarizing, this was the source of America's free ride really since the 1970s, since we went off gold in 1971.
Right. So the shock troops that work on behalf of the US dollar empire work at the IMF and the World Bank, seemingly. And they're the point people that go out there. You know, John Perkins wrote a great book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman, talking about how the U.S. indebts countries, particularly in Central America, in ways that are impossible to pay back. And it's when they don't pay back, they ask for assets and other things in return. Effectively, that's the empire. It's an empire of debt, and they threaten violence. The CIA is also an instrument of monetary extremism or monetary violence. I would say it's the primary purpose of the CIA would be to enforce the dollar, which, as Paul Krugman of the New York Times points out, is backed by men with guns, end quote. Is that true?
It is true, because if the key to American control over the rest of the world is financial, is establishing a banking and financial system control, then anything that threatens this is going to end America's ability to control other countries. So yes, the CIA's job is to promote what is America's means of financial leverage, as we're seeing now over Argentina.
And remember, as I showed here a couple shows ago, the CIA, to whatever, obviously, that trusting what they produce is questionable. But in their own research, published research, the CIA is saying that Bitcoin and crypto are not a problem. They're not a threat. They are, in fact, helpful in surveillance and monitoring. because the blockchain ledger is open and accessible and permanent. And despite claims of it being protected and encrypted, it's permanent and accessible by them, they feel, as a method of surveillance, and don't see it as a threat at all. So I don't know if Max is up on that latest, but if the CIA, as is correct, and John Perkins' book is fantastic. I've gifted it even. I love the book so much. Confessions of an Economic Hitman. But the CIA correctly is trying to impose not just the dollar, but U.S. hegemony. If the dollar works, so be it. If surveillance through blockchain and cryptocurrency works, so be it. They're happy to do all of that. And as we also showed through the Jake Tran video, like the NSA is at least, an above average suspect as a true originator of or even being Satoshi. But they're certainly not worried about people engaging in crypto and Bitcoin. And as I've also been showing, JP Morgan and Bank of America and everybody else is buying it all up, and all the Wall Street private, they're engaged in it as well. So this idea that it is somehow a threat in the way Max is suggesting, it doesn't make any sense.
Which is now running into trouble again. And the pro-U.S. Argentinian government looked like it was going to lose the election. The IMF lent an enormous amount of new money to Argentina so that all of the wealthy Argentinians and the American companies there could move their money out of Argentine currency into the dollar. And then after the left wing took over, the IMF let Argentina drop, and foreign speculators moved against Argentina. And so the United States can say, whether your country has an oligarchy or a democracy, if you have a democracy, we're going to crush you. If we support oligarchy, and that essentially, I think, is Biden is having the summit next week between democracy and authoritarians. He said, look, America's backing autocracy. We're the autocracy. Our enemy are democratic countries that actually follow what voters do, like Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, China, Russia. So you're having.
And by the way, voters are not the people that brought in Bitcoin to El Salvador. To Hudson's point here, the U.S. is worried about democracies and leadership that listens to the people. The people didn't want Bitcoin. They're not asking for cryptocurrency in El Salvador. That's being imposed on them, and many of them can't even benefit from it, as would be predictable.
The whole fight against democracy being coordinated monetarily by the Federal Reserve and the Treasury, and militarily by the CIA and the Defense Department.
It seems like this fight against democracy, as you describe it, using U.S. dollar as a weapon, as we run out of countries to exploit, these policymakers are looking inward. And so America is now being eaten out from within. Is that a fair characteristic?
That's exactly what's happening. This is what happened in Rome. When you can't exploit other countries anymore, you turn within, and the class war is back in business here. And you're having a very rapid polarization of the economy and hence of American politics.
All right. Now, when you wrote Super Imperialism back in the 70s, and it's got a third edition coming out, and everyone's embracing it, looking at it again because it's such a brilliant book. You were at the time kind of transitioning out of your role as a credit analyst at Chase Manhattan Bank. Is how you kind of made your bones initially as an analyst. I got to ask you to put your credit analyst hat on for a second. What's going on in Turkey? The currency's in free fall. Erdogan is lowering interest rates. Is that what you would recommend him to do? What should he be doing?
Well, he's basically committed a financial suicide in Turkey.
All right, I'm gonna stop it there because they don't come back to the specifics of our interests here and get into some other things about Turkey in particular. And I also, because I got the third edition of Hudson's book, I want to come back to it because, as I said earlier, when Max is saying Bitcoin, or crypto pushers, as I'm describing them, the cryptogandists, are wanting to use this book as an argument in favor of Bitcoin. They're doing it because without the requisite political education, perspective, and I think without actually reading what he's talking about. And I would definitely say the Black crypto pushing community is not referring to this. They're not referring to this. They're referring to Max Keiser, as Isaiah Jackson and others have, but they're not referring to Hudson. And in fact, probably should have let that. I put the link in. You should. I was going to say I should have let the video go, because at one point Max brings up something specific, something in esoteric to the study of economics, and Hudson checks him. I don't know what they're really talking about. It's got something specific to do with an old economic theorist's predictions, not related to what we're talking about here. But the point is Max is shown to be incorrect and has to basically stand down to Hudson on that point. And I'm just saying that Max is, a non-radical, seemingly populist Wall Street guy. He's, and RT is an increasingly, as I'm paying attention, conservative outlet. So he's not, and I've never seen Max offer up some radical, he's got a general, I think, accurate problem with Wall Street abuse, corporate abuse. And by the way, Dr. Mark Blythe, and I think there was one other economist I referenced recently. They both said that they don't think Max actually owns any Bitcoin. That they think, I don't know what they think. They didn't clearly lay out what they think he's doing, but they don't even think he owns any Bitcoin, which I think is funny. But they're not. But folks are not actually reading what Hudson is saying here. Now, it's not. I mean, it's. I haven't read the entire book. It's in some ways a bit complicated, a bit nuanced, very detailed. But certainly reading the updated epilogue for 2021 in this third edition is very clarifying. The broad argument that Hudson is making, and has been for about 50 years apparently, because this was first published in the early 70s, is that to make up for the fact that the U.S. wasn't using the gold standard anymore and was sort of reneging on its post-World War II agreement with Western Europe as to how it was going to manage the new world, so to speak. That is, and he even talks about this, that Western Europe was like, okay, cool. The U.S. is the dominant force right now. You have all the money. You're lending us all the money to bail us out of all of our crises and do all this other stuff. Or rather, you are sort of forcing us to use our tax base and our revenue generation to pay for your military and businesses. They said, but since you're the powerful force, we get it. We're cool with that. And you're ultimately doing that for the benefit of the world, was the idea. That's what he's saying, was that Western Europe believed that the United States was doing after the Second World War. By the 70s, everybody started to realize, all right, they're not doing it for the world good. They're doing it for themselves. And they're expanding their reach. They're imposing the dollar. They're making us buy their businesses and buy their products as a way to pay them back for giving us weaponry in both world wars, and for winning, for being, even though Russia really won the Second World War, but the US gets to claim credit for it. So they're saying, from the beginnings with the 70s, at least, Hudson, and that's why he was invited to China and all that, was saying people got to get off of this if they want to catch up and return some balance to the world. Now, again, he's not writing this as a radical leftist, I don't think, at least, although some of it I get to see why he would say he was seen that way, because he uses the word parasite, for instance, in describing U.S. empire. Anyway, So, for instance, one thing he says here, he says, U.S. officials have no intention of imposing, and this is today, this is in his updated epilogue. U.S. officials have no intention of imposing domestic austerity or selling off key economic assets to pay America's foreign debt, to say nothing of cutting back its military spending as it demanded of European debtor countries in the 1930s. The policy is to finance the ongoing U.S. balance of payments deficits with more Treasury IOUs. As former Treasury Secretary John Connolly quipped to European and other payment surplus nations reluctantly flooded with dollar inflows, it's our dollar, but your problem. So, in other words, as I understand what he's saying here, it's the same kind of thing. The U.S. isn't going to say, you know, we're broke, so we're going to slow down over here. And you know, we're going to pay off our debt and we're going to cut back on military spending and sort of get our balance. You know, we're not doing all that because we got to keep buying all the military. And we don't want to pay the debt. We want others to pay the debt. So we're gonna make other countries buy up our Treasury IOUs and make other countries support our businesses who will theoretically bring taxes and revenue back to our country, blah, 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 blah. Hudson continues, that has been the guiding principle of U.S. financial diplomacy since 1971. It has worked remarkably well, but of course there is a limit to just how far U.S. diplomats can press foreign governments to accept more dollars. To help offset the balance of payments costs of U.S. overseas military spending, American policy has promoted foreign investment by U.S. corporations since 1960s. The hope was for them to buy up most of the profitable sectors of foreign economies and remit a rising flow of foreign earnings to the United States. This is why we saw things like NAFTA, he talks about, the North American Free Trade Agreement that Clinton and others pushed through, the World Trade Organization stuff, he talks about bringing China into the World Trade Organization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all to impose U.S. interests through the dollar on other people. The United States itself has adopted the privatization policy at home, posing the question of whether it or any economy can live by replacing public infrastructure with corporate rent-seeking, increasing the cost of living by privatizing markets for basic needs and allowing the finance, insurance, and real estate or FIRE sector to inflate housing, healthcare, and education costs by an exponential growth of debt. These increases in the cost of living and doing business have made the U.S. economy uncompetitive in world markets, except for the arms industry, agriculture, and intellectual property rights, and informing technology, pharmaceutical monopolies, and entertainment. All right. What that he then talks about is that he talks a little bit about how Obama tried to further impose this and it was resisted. The Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Transatlantic Trade Investment Partnership deals, which were, as Hudson says, designed as a radical proposal to limit the power of governments to enact regulations that might impair the profits of foreign sectors. So again, my point in all of this is that what Hudson is showing is that organized political power via the United States is used to manipulate the versions of organized political power in other parts of the world, to force those other organized nations, countries, etc., people to succumb to the will of U.S. dominance. When Russia, Brazil, India, China, the BRICS nations, or anyone else, Iran, and anyone else try to organize to break away from what is being described here as dollar diplomacy, that is, take our dollars, and if you don't, we come with the bombs. Those are organized political entities trying to resist the efforts of another organized political entity. So whenever they make reference to the dollar or another currency, etc., it's with the understanding that they are engaging those currencies, not as, or those stocks or those whatever, not as the solutions to their problems themselves, but as mechanisms to be used by already organized political entities who have political power to determine policy, distribution, definition of wealth, etc. And yet, Black people and others are being encouraged to engage this global battle as individual investors buying Satoshis with no broader political goal other than some vague illusion of an illusion of creating wealth and closing a racial wealth gap. So my point is, while Hudson is writing about political power, the broad headline, which by the way relates back to my first segment or whatever on Kwanzaa versus socialism, people are reading the headline of, we got to break away from the US dollar, the super imperialism of the US dollar, by engaging in a very either other imperial process or some other process that is itself not a radical political organized project. So the same vagueness of the solution of cryptocurrency is, I'm suggesting, similar to the vagueness in the solution of Kawaida or Kwanzaa. I guess let me see, there was a couple other pieces from this. So as he says here, by the way, the U.S. also states, the United States also has arms sales, which its dollar diplomacy and saber rattling forces other countries to buy. But on balance, the U.S. economy and its military diplomacy have become a burden on the rest of the world, confronted by the U.S. military threats that oblige other nations to invest in their own countervailing defensive spending. This military threat is not likely to go away. It's endemic to America's political system. So again, a disorganized political community, a politically disorganized community that is seeking to satisfy its material needs by investing, largely as individuals, with no political education or context applied to it. What is going to happen? So again, what is Hill Harper saying is going to happen here? When the world ends up on Bitcoin, through what political process he doesn't explain, and that they have to come through us because now we have millions of Satoshis. What does he think the US is going to do? Again, just like I was saying about what Max Keiser is suggesting about El Salvador, what do you think they're going to do if El Salvador somehow used its volcanic energy, which isn't something anyone else, isn't available to everyone else in the world, but they somehow, as Max was saying, use their volcanic energy to bypass the energy crisis or the energy concerns in mining Bitcoin and create, what was it, Crypto City or whatever he was talking about, and start to really threaten the US dollar. What does he think that they're going to do? What does he think is going to happen here? So when all right, so a little more with Hudson here. Britain and continental Europe after World War II recognized that they were being turned into economic dependencies, but made no attempt to create an alternative system. In addition to lacking the critical mass necessary to go it alone, they held to a deep ideological belief that creditors had a natural right to set the rules of international trade, investment, and diplomacy. This is the part I was talking about earlier. And they dreamed that the United States somehow would act in the interests of the world as a whole, not in a selfish nationalistic way. Europe hoped that the world's major creditor, the United States, would find its self-interest to lie in helping everyone grow peacefully. That illusion no longer exists. Now the dust is settling. Foreign countries are asking themselves just what the United States has to offer. It has agricultural exports, but fights to prevent other countries from growing their own food in competition with U.S. farmers. It has Hollywood movies, popular culture, and monopolies with proprietary intellectual property rights in the form of information technology and pharmaceuticals. It had strong aircraft sales for Boeing before Boeing put financial engineering to raise. It had strong aircraft sales before Boeing put financial engineering to raise its stock price ahead of industrial engineering to build safe aircraft. Most deranging to the world is the neoliberal rentier philosophy that America seeks to impose on other countries via the IMF and World Bank as levelers to privatize, financialize, and promote corporate dominance over foreign governments. The past century's experience shows that such dependency is the deliberate tactic of neoliberal financial power. America's neoliberal opposition to foreign government autonomy and regulatory power is the essence of what is becoming Cold War 2.0 against China, post-Soviet Russia, and their fellow members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO. The self-defeating U.S. trade sanctions against Russia and China are driving these and other nations into a position where their only defense is to do what Britain and the rest of the world could not do in 1945. Create an alternative economic order with its own rules and replace the dollar by negotiating their own mutual currency swaps using gold or both gold and swaps together. Keynes, the economist, proposed a multipolar international financial system at Bretton Woods in 1944. The Bancor, B-A-N-C-O-R, was to be issued as fiat money by a global central bank making loans to countries that ran a balance of payments deficit so that they would not have to impose a self-defeating austerity. But as Keynes himself noted, the time was not yet ripe for such a regime. Neither Britain and its empire nor Europe were prepared to accept any form of international money and credit not based on the US dollar and US gold holdings. Ultimately, at issue today is how China and Russia can take the lead in creating an alternative aimed at minimizing the cost of living and doing business. No doubt that the United States will seek to resist such de-dollarization and the creation of an alternative international financial system not dependent on dollar credit and neoliberal financial philosophy. And then he just goes on to suggest that the epoch of unipolar dominance is over, as he says, and it could be the coming multipolar world, not just to be called the Chinese century, but the rise of other political or powerful nations. Now, not listed in his list of uprising political nations is Black people, the Black nation, or any African nation. And it's not because they are not adopting fast enough a cryptocurrency. The issue and the reason that I read those highlights and that I highlighted them and that they ring out to me from Hudson's book is that what Hudson is describing, again, is organized politics and political movements with a clarity, right or wrong, but a clarity of what it is that they want to have done for the collective and with a political power that can be acted on that interest. They're not just simply, again, encouraging the adoption of a currency or an investment in some speculative Wall Street product as a solution to the problem. Yet we keep having it pitched to us that the simple adoption of a currency, investment in a currency, is going to benefit us as a collective. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And to the extent that the crypto world is claiming Michael Hudson's work, I don't think that they're reading it, and I don't think that they're interpreting it properly. And they're somehow equating a disparate group of anonymous investors around the world with organized political nations. And at the same time, not encouraging that people engage, particularly Black and world majority colonized people. They're not encouraging that we engage these crypto spaces as organized political nations. there's somehow, Harper is somehow suggesting that through our collective investment and adoption of his app, we will get to that political state of nature, so to speak. And it just doesn't make any sense. So again, just very quickly, who owns the most Bitcoin? Satoshi Nakamoto, the anonymous creator and first miner, is estimated to hold the largest Bitcoin cache, more than 1 million, valued at 4.5 million. No. Wait. That's $4.5 billion, right? Yeah. So Satoshi is you know, again, as I've mentioned before, the Bitcoin billionaires, 3 Bitcoin addresses hold more than 100,000 Bitcoins each. So there's already, I mean, there's already, you know, in this blockchain real estate Hill Harper is advocating, there's already a level of inequality that can't be bridged. Tesla, Galaxy Digital holding the most, public companies, collectively public companies own more than 216,000 Bitcoins, or 1% of the supply. MicroStrategy, led by Michael Saylor, holds more Bitcoin than any other public company, 105,000. Tesla, 49,000 Bitcoin. Private companies own 174,000. Bulgaria and Ukraine hold some Bitcoin. So I mean, there's I don't know to what extent Black people are supposed to be able to catch up here, but that was one thing. I'm not done yet. There's a couple other things I did want us to look at. So for instance, and this is a little bit fun. You can watch a little bit of this. And I actually would recommend this channel that I'll show here, CoffeeZilla. It's an entertaining look at the crypto world. And this is a pro-crypto guy. So this isn't like crypto is a con or whatever type stuff that he's saying here. But he does look at, but he is, as a pro-crypto guy, he is saying there's a problem. And he says that crypto, first of all, he says it needs to be regulated, and there's a problem with a lot of scams. So let's just look at a little bit.
Get an influencer to tweet about your Doge Elon stupid Ponzi coin. Today we find out. Welcome to day 4 of a CoffeeZilla Christmas. I'm your host in the $10 million studio. Now, guys, ever since Soulja Boy cranked that Twitter a little too hard and exposed that he had been paid $24,000 to promote cryptocurrencies, aka Safe Mars, we've known that influencers are making thousands. The same way influencers promote VPNs or G Fuel, they've now moved on to crypto. Now, I'm not going to waste time explaining the ethical and moral difference between advertising Blue Chew and Stick Dicks. Yes, there is a difference, but ultimately, like it or not, influencers aren't going to stop pitching the latest get-rich-quick schemes, and with regulation 5 to 10 years behind, you guys are at risk falling for ads disguised as influencer posts. So today I thought I would share with you guys all the secret lists I've found of crypto influencers' prices, the prices to post sponsored posts. And many of them do not disclose that they are sponsored, although some do. Now, up first, we have @NFT on Instagram. Now, this one is near and dear to my heart because they are apparently a Mark Cuban company and leverage company. You contact @JF for business. And yes, we will. But just looking at some of their posts, you can see what kind of stuff they do.
December 6th, I'm dropping my first NFT, Apes in Space. We're going to the moon, so don't miss it.
Here we have another shill post. And these do not say that they are ads. Okay, they do not say that. Now, of course, I was curious how much they charged. So I asked them, how much do you charge for a post? And they say, what's good? We charge $20,000 to $25,000 per post, which is part of a campaign that includes a full feature, blah, 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 blah. The point is $20,000 to $25,000 for a undisclosed ad, which I just think is awesome, coming from a Mark Cuban company. That's just, woo, that's beautiful. You know, you'd think that these are great projects that these people believe in, but actually, A bunch of it's
Did you see
paid.
Snoop
Now,
and
next-
is that Snoop and Vlad? Are they in there? In the background there as he scrolls? Yeah, or Khalid, DJ Khalid. Yeah. And Snoop right there. So I don't know that DJ Khaled buys a Bored Ape NFT. So anyway, one reason why I wanted to show this is that one of the many reasons why this stuff is I think so confusing to so many is that we get bad analyses and promotion from Hill Harper, Roland Martin, John Hope Bryant, but then we get all of these paid promotions from pop. You know, we talked about Tory Lanez before and his Ethereum NFT I think scheme. Where people are paid thousands of dollars to promote this stuff, and it's confusing the conversation around what not only these things are, but what potential they have to make individuals money. And then my problem is when it's made broad and brought to the collective solution level, or the level of a collective solution, that I think it becomes, so anyway, that's
people
interesting.
Believe in, but actually, a bunch of it's paid. Now, next up, we have a guy you may have heard of at BitBoy Crypto. He's the largest YouTube crypto channel, and I found this media kit thanks to Zach on Twitter, who's always digging up really interesting crypto stories. Now, here in this media kit, we can see the demographics of BitBoy's channel. We can see that it is mostly going to be a male audience, which not too surprising there. But we can also see how much it costs for, getting shouted out.
$40,000,
Dedicated review, $35,000. Live stream, just pay $20,000. You could be in a live stream mention. YouTube interview, oh, well, that's going to cost you $40,000. Telegram AMA, oh, that's going to be $10,000. And a website article, only $2,500, guys. Just $2,500.
So people are getting promoted as, or being used to promote these things and getting paid good amounts of money, which that's fascinating. And then you got this one. He did this one, which I thought was interesting. Hold on a second. Hold on, because again, it's just we're getting economic analysis from all over the place.
They have a big announcement.
That is a story from Kim Kardashian's Instagram where she shilled a scam crypto coin to 228 million followers. Is anyone else sick of these so-called influencers, right? Scamming working class people, their followers, and then pretending like it never happened? It continually blows my mind that they're allowed to do this and get away with it. But I want to make this video as a very clear warning to people to stay away from this coin. It's called Ethereum Max, okay? Promoted by none other than the Hobbit herself.
My girl ain't no Hobbit.
And I know I'm a fine one to talk here, but anyway, let me tell you all about it. Let's go to the board, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the $10 million studio. I'm your host, CoffeeZilla, and we've got to take a close look at this thing because it is sick what is going on. Now, first of all, I know a lot of you guys are excited about getting screwed by Kim Kardashian, but let me tell you, this is not the way, okay? She posted her story saying this, guys. Again, real account. I cannot believe we're at this point, right? We used to have the Paul brothers ripping people off with crypto. Now we have Kim Kardashian, basically Mrs. America herself at this point.
Guys, I have a big announcement.
Big announcement, guys. And then it reads, I gotta pause it for a second because you
advice.
blink and you'll miss it. It says, are you guys into crypto? Because you know, Kim, big proponent of crypto, always talking about it. And then the first part is our favorite line on this show. This is not financial advice. It's always, this is not financial advice. But here, let me shill this real quick. This thing I don't believe in and never heard of prior to 5 minutes ago when my publicist told me I could make $1 billion. She says, but sharing what my friends just told me about the Ethereum Max token. Yeah, you know, guys, her friends who also happened to pay her to do this. Because make no mistake, this is an ad. I know it's not clear from this wall of text. A few minutes ago, Ethereum Max burned 400 trillion tokens that were made up. They're digital. That doesn't mean anything, okay? Literally 50% of their admin wallet giving back to the entire Emacs community. hashtag Emax, hashtag disrupt this story, hashtag Ethereum Max,
disrupt history.
hashtag WTF Max, hashtag GOP Max, at Ethereum Max, hashtag ad. And then you have that lovely swipe up, just in case you weren't clear that this is a paid promotion, okay? And this is not for Squarespace or Audible or, you know, some legitimate product line. It's not even like a makeup that you could say Kim Kardashian would know something about. This is about cryptocurrencies, okay? And specifically, Ethereum Max is not like a legitimate cryptocurrency like Ethereum. You might be confused. You might think, what, is that just like Ethereum?
So again, that's where, again, we disagree on that. I mean, he's pro crypto. He thinks it has, but at least his promotion of it, he does two things that I think are right. One, he's making the argument that, look, they're not promoting just like a razor or a hair care product. They're promoting something that is encouraging people to invest with the idea that they can change their lives. And then we're being told more broadly that it can change our collective lives. That's where the distinction where I agree with him and that I would want to draw as well. Like, you know, you want to sell it. I mean, we joke all the time about being Uncle Nearest sponsors. But at least that's an actual product. It's actually a Black-owned product, and whether it's not. We're not saying if you invest in or if you buy this liquor, it's going to make you better and it's going to save us collectively and close gaps and help us become rich and change our political and economic and social da 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 da. We're not. So that I think is, you know, but more specifically for me, the point is that just seeing the general promotion of cryptocurrency, from whether it's Ethereum Max or Bitcoin, from the Hill Harpers to the Kardashians to whomever else, is part of what I think causes this a confusing, a sort of echo chamber of confusion around economic analysis and what we can do and how we can get out of here. And just one more. Just one more example of that is you know, that I have here is
offer a look into the scammy world of influencer marketing, which just so happens to be my favorite topic on this channel. A couple people we're going to focus on today is Tekashi69, a man known for his beautiful rainbow hair and friendship, Lil Pump, known for his eccentrically colored hair, and Lil Uzi Vert, also known for his eccentric appearance. It's almost like they're diverting away your attention from their music. That's metaphorical for the topic of today's video, which is these influencers diverting your money away from your pockets and into someone else's. A huge scam. Fans who bought Tekashi69 backed NFTs are pissed. Today, I'm surprising you with something you may have never heard about: a rapper or influencer scamming their fans with an NFT or crypto coin. When the 26-year-old Londoner heard that infamous rapper Tekashi69 had gotten into the NFT game, he says he went all in on these creepy cartoons, spending around $40,000. It turned out to be a huge scam, he tells Rolling Stone. Since some of you may not be familiar with Tekashi69, he is a very well-known rapper from New York who went viral a few years ago. In May 2020, he found himself in a precarious position. He is the prosecution's star witness in a racketeering and firearms case against members of his former crew, the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods. In the social media-driven economy we find ourselves in, attention matters most. If you ever doubted it, look at Tekashi. The troll says he sold out the 7,500-person Payne Arena in Hidalgo, Texas, and got paid $500K for it. He added that his ops struggled to get 700 fans in a club and lie about getting $200K. In February, 6ix9ine admitted to being a member of the 9 Trey gang and said he had helped other gang members rob people at gunpoint. In the hopes of a reduced sentence, he made a deal with federal prosecutors. Regardless of his past and the drama that constantly surrounds him, fans still wanted to support the controversial rapper by being a member of his new NFT community.
Yo, what's up, y'all? Yo, thank you so much for supporting the Trolls NFT. Thank y'all. I love y'all. Taking it to the moon.
Tekashi69 began promoting this new NFT collection called Trolls in October, just a couple of months ago. Here's the Instagram account featuring a colorful profile picture, some rainbows, and mention that the NFTs give back to charity and holders. With all of these new NFTs allegedly given back to charities, you'd think world hunger would be solved by now. One day away from launch at the end of October, this post recognized that there were 80,000 members in the Trolls NFT community. What really happens with these influencer NFT projects is the big name celebrity gets paid a good amount of money to attach their name to the project. They'll say it's their NFT project, the name represents their brand, and the benefits of owning include access to a community and charity and blah, blah, blah. They're all the same.
Scarcity, and
So there's like a
demand.
huge ethical dilemma around that where if you're willing to compromise your like followers essentially and be like, I'm going to pull the rug out from you.
Yeah, I won't do it. Like
Yeah.
I got offered $3 million to promote a coin. I got offered $2 million to promote an NFT. Like real money, dude.
I'm shocked how
But-
many people who are rich already and have big social media followings that otherwise could compromise their integrity that they built up for years are willing to do it for like $1 million or something.
This was a professional poker player talking about having the opportunity to promote these scams and turning it down. Once you find out how the game is played, you'll realize that influencers promoting a scam and influencers making their own NFT community are all the same thing. There's someone behind the scenes who's a master marketer and manipulator. Some would argue they're synonymous with each other in the influencer marketing space. That person pays an influencer with no integrity a large sum of money. Here's a perfect example someone just sent me. These
I
are
never
the
even heard-
island
these
boys
people
who
are really
somehow
out
have
here. Like, this
amassed
is
a
what-
large
this is what I'm
following.
saying. Like,
Bonsai
this is
NFT
crazy.
paid them to promote their project.
I want everyone to meet Bonsai. Hey, NFTs come with Bonsai NFT. They be giving out free t-shirts. With the NFT, they mint it for every person who mints one.
Wow.
That they give away diamond studs and Gucci with Rolex. So don't you play with them. Don't you play with them. Go mint the NFT. It's called Bonsai. BONZAI NFT. They give away a t-shirt, give away a diamond stud, give away a Gucci, give away a Rollie. Yeah. So get with them right now.
So, all right, I'm gonna stop it there. Like, I think we get the point. Like, that's painful. But like but to me, when I watch something as corny, as silly as that, I don't ultimately see that as being any different from what Hill Harper and others are doing. It's Hill Harper is more sophisticated, has the lingo down, the a more professional approach, obviously, but he's still promoting the same kind of. It's still a similar, and in some ways, a same kind of paid advertisement to bring people into the crypto world. He is making money for himself, making money for others by bringing people into the investment space to create wealth and value for other people. Now, these characters are not coming back, and in some ways, what Hill Harper is doing is worse, because even these guys are not coming back around and saying, we're going to solve the collective economic troubles of our communities. What they're just saying, if you get in and create this new NFT community with me, we'll make money. And even at that level, it's a scam and a con. But here comes Hill Harper and others with a more sophisticated and dangerous. I mean, that's more easy to dismiss, I think. Maybe not for certain age groups or whatever, I don't know. But when Hill Harper comes in with the clean delivery and the catchphrases, and comes in there like when Peniel Joseph used to do the thing with Kwame Ture, he just wants to radically transform American democracy. Here comes Hill Harper with the ascending value asset class. And what was the other one about investing? What was it? What is it? It's on the front page. They call it, what's the other version of it? Dollar cost averaging, ascending value asset class. Anyway, and promote something even worse. So, anyway, so that's it. That was basically it. I hope on some level these two things help. There's one more thing I want to get to, have a little fun with, but I want to just sort of put the bow on this part, that Kwanzaa, Kawaida, crypto, it don't matter if it doesn't have an aggressively organized, politically educated base to it that is clear, that the goal is redistribution, the goal is collective improvement, if it's not a radical, if we're not calling for the organization to assume power, political power, and again, don't mean Democratic, Republican parties. I mean the ability to determine how society is defined and how it is structured and how it engages in process. If we're not doing that, I think it's misleading and damaging, and we're being discouraged from political organization every time someone does an NFT or crypto promotion. Every time someone says, Black business and Black capitalism and investment is a pathway. It's a distraction from what is always supposed to be our purpose: organization for radical assumption of political power, which is what all the movements and great luminaries that we quote and misquote have all said, including, as he misquoted and misreferenced, Dr. King. So, all right, one more little fun story I want to come back with, and then I'll wrap up for the day. So just one quick break. We'll come back here.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.
So just real quick, I know I'm going long this morning, but we got snow and no school, and it's whatever, holiday, whatever. So I want to go through this real quick, and then if folks have any questions or comments that they want me to address live right here, right now, please do re-enter them in the comment or chat, so that and I'll do what I can to address it, and I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, hit me up later. I mix what I like, gmail.com, or post a comment, like my man Pierre Comedy Hype says.
Put it in the comments.
But so I saw this story the other day, and I said, dang, this explains a lot. So I used to, for a while I was trying to, as I keep trying to find these alternatives, I was looking at Crystal Ball, no relation, and at least that I'm aware of, Saagar and Enjeti's show that is now Breaking Points. And for a while I was, and even sometimes people would say, why aren't you on there? Especially when the Buying Power book came out, why aren't you on there? But I noticed giving some, I think, fun at times and interesting and even important critiques of mainstream news, they were very clear. They're not radicals. They can't stand what they reduce to identity politics in the negative way. Their discussions on when it comes to race are led by what's his name? Said Jelani, whose misunderstanding of Black history and race in this country it knows no bounds. So they love all that kind of stuff. And Rami Freeman, whatever, I forgot how to pronounce his name. If I ever knew, he goes on there, he used to go on there and misrepresent my work and not, but they like that. The Democratic Republican Party, milieu. They like all of that. But this I said, wow, this explains so much more. Saagar and Enjeti, this is in Mint Press News. And I'll put the link in the show notes if it's not already there. A Warhawk Rising, Saagar and Enjeti, the pseudo-populist mainlining neocon ideas into progressive politics. Now, he's clear, he's the right-wing dude in what is supposed to be in opposition to Crystal Ball being the liberal, and their goal is to create this idea that they're creating a new populism. They're moving beyond the confines of narrow left-right debate. They want to move on to something blah 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 blah. But it's pretty clear that, as the headline says, they're particularly through Saagar, infusing a neocon thing into the conversation. So when I read this, I was like, no wonder. Of course I'm not going to be invited, or nobody left of whatever. So it says here, neocon in making. Before becoming a populist media personality, Enjeti appeared to be training for the role of deep state official, pursuing an undergraduate degree at George Washington University and a master's degree in security studies at Georgetown University, both DC area colleges, well known for their connections to the national security state. Enjeti also decided to study counterterrorism studies at Israeli University in IDC Herzliya. Situated on a former military base, the university's board boasts of a former head of Mossad and ex-Prime Minister Ehud Barak. Meanwhile, the International Advisory Board is replete with U.S. national security leaders such as Robert Hutchings, former chairman of the National Intelligence Council, Stephen Peter Rosen, one-time director of the Political Military Affairs at the White House National Security Council, and ex-CIA chief R. James Woolsey. Wow. Okay. The master's program in counterterrorism studies features modules in profiling terrorist strategy and deterrence, Arab language, Iranian studies, and a course called Hezbollah, a hybrid terrorist organization. This is an institution that trains Israeli and American intelligence officials, not radical populist outsiders. The Counterterrorism Studies Department is headed by Dr. Boaz Ganor, an Israeli government advisor. During the latest Israeli assault on Gaza, IDC Herzliya's president sent out a message to students condemning the Gazans' supposed wanton aggressiveness. These rockets were fired at a civilian population with the intent to kill, he seethed. Luckily, he said, with the help of Dr. Ganor in coordination with Israeli-American Council and the U.S. and use of ACT-IL, an Israeli government-funded app, which, as Mint Press reported in May, helped Zionists artificially infiltrate online conversations and flood them with pro-Israel messages. Public opinion was holding firm. So yeah, I mean, anyway, that was really it. And there's more in here, but that I just thought was hilarious. That this is so it's sort of what I'm saying elsewhere. Like, this is nominally alternative spaces are coming out of this sort of, matrix, so to speak. And I would say the same thing about these Black capitalist arguments. They're coming out of non-radical spaces and being imposed on us as populist alternatives. So in that way, there is that parallel as well. But baked in them are very neoliberal, neoconservative, Black conservative, Black capitalist messages. And that's why I think BPM is so important. That's why, anyway. Yeah, that just made me hungry too. Yeah, Crystal Ball comes out of MSNBC. That's what I'm saying. Like she's very non-radical. She's positioned vis-a-vis that guy as the left spokesperson, and that gives them a legitimacy, and it gives them what do you think about the decentralization disruptive nature? I know that you're not against centralized entities, but if we are to destroy Babylon, we can only do it with an anti-system. I don't disagree with that, but my point is okay. When people talk about decentralization in crypto, I think that is falsely applied to decentralized politics. One, I don't want to live in a situation, and I see you saying that I'm not against centralized entities. I'm not. I don't want to live in a situation where the society is run by disparate, encrypted, transacted discussion. I want to live in a society that is transparent, where leadership is selected or elected in a way that is responsible and beholden to the people, and that does the people's will, and that the people's will is defined as peace, redistribution, letting people, have their practices and cultural preferences, etc. But the wealth that we produce is distributed properly. That's okay. But the decentralization in crypto is simply, their claim is that they're calling decentralization anything that moves away from the current arrangement of central banks. But what is clearly, to me, replacing those central banks are centralized encrypted platforms owned and run by private equity groups or individual famous people. So Coinbase and Robinhood and Black Wall Street Wallet, and these are the new centralized points through which all these exchanges are occurring, on which the keys and access to the blockchain where the crypto is held are maintained. So what the biggest difference is, if you get ripped off, there's no authority to which you can apply, at least theoretically with the banking system. There is. If they rob the bank today, if the BLA showed up today and robbed the bank my money is in today in order to redistribute those funds to the people for the struggle, my money, whatever I thought of that political action, my money would be protected and insured. They would get what they needed to do what they were going to do. I would get reimbursed. Fine. If you lose your crypto password, or if it gets hacked, and these exchanges are getting hacked with some regularity, that's it. It's a wrap. There's nobody to whom you can go to. If somebody sells you, if you buy something, they send it to you and it's an empty box, who you gonna call? I know, insert the Ghostbusters joke there, but I'm just saying, who you gonna call? So I don't see crypto as the anti-system, would be my shortest point here. It's not the system. A radically organized assumption of political power along scientific socialist lines, that would be an anti-system. Putting money, buying crypto through Hill Harper's app, that's not an anti-system. So I think there's a misunderstanding of what decentralization is in crypto versus the political world. And I don't think they're the same thing. And I don't think we're replacing these negative authorities. Again, I'm not promoting the IMF, the World Bank, and JP Morgan. I'm simply saying crypto is not the alternative. And they're not threatened by it. They're not even threatened by it. They're invested in it. Yeah, I've seen that argument too, that it's radically libertarian. I don't even know about that, because again, I don't know. But even the libertarian crypto supporters, like that guy, I think CoffeeZilla qualifies as that, they want regulation of some kind. So, I mean, even libertarianism to a certain extent recognizes the initial need of a government authority to do certain things and provide a certain context in which libertarianism can thrive. It's not about the coin itself. I'm not arguing that either. You define a consensus mechanism and nobody can violate it, or you have the majority to change the rules. How does that work though? How do you have, again, in a blockchain environment where everybody's anonymous, how do you reach consensus? The consensus in the blockchain context is when somebody submits a claim through their key, the computerized blockchain refers back to the ledger and then determines whether that attempted transaction is legit, meaning, do you actually have the Bitcoin? Are you trying to double spend the Bitcoin? All of that is where the consensus, but that doesn't work for, again, so consensus in the blockchain environment means the computer's signing off on an attempted transaction. That's not the same as conscious, politically organized individuals as part of a society voting and determining on this or another issue what is to be the move of society. So again, I think these terms are being misapplied. The other thing is, because I don't see Hill Harper or others engaged anywhere in these kinds of conversations. I've attempted to do this with the blockchain socialists. We'll try again, perhaps. Glenn Greenwald. I don't see them dealing with these. I don't see anybody. The black spaces don't even come anywhere near approaching these conversations. Unfortunately, the white spaces are doing a much better job of having some discussion. The black spaces I'm seeing are all mythologized propaganda. There's so much of it. And if others can find somewhere else, please let me know. I don't see where the conversations are happening. other than inviting black crypto pushers in to promote the mythology. I don't see anybody being challenged. It's not a mathematical concept. Democracy is not a mathematical concept that we need computers to. Democracy is a human, socially constructed approach to the world that predates all of this, Western society and everything. We don't need technology for that. We don't need a mathematical concept, which is just encrypted communication. That's all blockchain is. That's what the white paper is, and everybody talks about is this wondrous. All it is a detailed scientific breakdown of how you can privately exchange currency. It doesn't even claim in there to be the world-changing thing that people keep imposing on that white paper. And when they do, it's incorrect. It doesn't hold up. All of the answers have already been mined. They're just not properly promoted and distributed. So the answers around political organization, constructing a new world, have all been brought up. They've all been mined. They're just not being promoted. We don't need blockchain. Anyway. It's not about decentralized consensus, how you coordinate different actors to agree on a statement. Okay. All right. Esperhans, I don't know. Send me something. Email me a more laid out argument or point me somewhere. But I don't, the definition of the vote, as I understand it, is people politically educated and conscious about and organized and conscious about what they want and casting votes for people they have raised as candidates who would represent their interests. It is not, let's all go secretly behind some encrypted wall where there's no discussion, debate, just vote casting. I mean, that and allowing, computers to, through an algorithm, to determine the validity of our votes. Anyway, you said no. I must misunderstand. Send me some. imixwhatilike@gmail.com is my email. Send me an email with the argument and whatever. And yeah. That's what I'm saying. Crypto owners desperately need you buying crypto. That's why they pay people to promote it. And that's why unpolitically educated or people who don't care will take the money and promote. And beyond, and again, for me, when Kim Kardashian promotes Ethereum Max, it's not even specifically that she's promoting Ethereum Max. It's that I think people are just saying in general, crypto is something we should consider. And it works in a broader way. It works on that level as well. So, good. Please, right on. Pun intended. Right on. All right, good people. I think 3 hours is plenty. Probably too much. But listen, I definitely appreciate you all coming through. And again, those who will see and hear this later, I definitely appreciate you as well. Remember, the Remix Morning Show is back 8 a.m. Eastern tomorrow and all week this week. I'll be back again on Friday, of course. And again, if I missed it, please listen to my man PA.
Put it in the comments.
And I'll be back tomorrow morning with the remix, and we'll see you all throughout the platform. Please do make sure that you hit that bell when you sign up so that you don't miss stuff like the recent discussion that I talked about earlier, and get to all that. Anyway, appreciate all of you. Thanks for checking this out. And we'll catch you next time. As Fred Hampton used to say to you, we say peace if you're willing to fight for it. So peace, everybody, and catch you next time. And I mix what I like.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.